And here we are, here we are. Welcome back to another Digital Foundry retro stream. It's been a while since we've done a big public stream, but we're back with some good time fun for multiple reasons. First of all, of course, joining me for this is Audi Surly.
As always, and how great is it to be here today, John?
It is great to be here. And before we get started, I should note, anybody, if you hear audio issues like echo or you hear some noise in the background, there's many reasons for that. It's the best we can do given the circumstances, but so it should still be good enough. But yes, anyway, first of all, we're joined by our first special guest, who's actually here in the room with me. It's Alex Aniel. Maybe you can see him right there.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you there. He is sitting next to me over in the other side of the room, playing in front of the CRT. He's going to be the one playing the game tonight, and he's going to probably run through a whole scenario if we're lucky. But of course, our other special guest, you can see him sitting there ready to talk. It's Chris Huelsbeck. Chris,
Hi,
welcome.
everyone. Thanks for inviting me for this momentous event.
I'm glad you could be here because your work is part of the reason why this port is so good, especially on the specifically on the audio side, which we will be talking about tonight. So before we get into the discussion, Alex, why don't you go ahead and press that start button, and let's get this game going. Are you playing with blue blood or are you playing with red blood? That's the question.
Ooh, yeah, I forgot that we have a lot of choices here. So new game, normal, Leon or Claire? Chris, why don't you pick?
Chris,
Blue blood.
what do you want, Leon or Claire? Chris,
Claire.
Claire.
All right, good choice.
All right.
Violence high.
Let's do
What
it.
color?
I think he said
Red.
I think
Blue?
Chris said blue.
Blue.
Blue it is.
We're keeping this PG today.
It's easier
Exactly.
to stomach.
Yes.
I would
Here we
say
go.
Claire's a good choice, actually, because the whole reason this port surprises people is because of how much data gets crammed into one cartridge. And I think there's one thing about Claire's game that's really interesting.
Yeah, and we will see that no doubt tonight. So yes, here we are. We're getting started. The introduction is kicking off. If you have any questions about the inventory items that we have equipped over there, let us know. We're currently in condition fine, which is excellent to know. And we have Resident Evil 2 equipped, so let's do this.
I think, right off the bat here, though, the fact that we're playing the N64 version and then seeing full motion video needs to be highlighted.
Yes, that's true. So obviously right away, I don't know, Chris, I mean, you obviously helped convert the sound, but also the video aspect is impressive as well because they managed to compress all the video data down into a format that's workable on a small cartridge. The game itself is only 64 megabytes, but the original PlayStation version came on 2 CDs with some repeated data, of course. But
It's pretty insane what they did. And I didn't have much to do with the video side, obviously.
right.
But the audio was just another nightmare that they had to tackle because there was a lot.
So
But
maybe
we were talking shortly before the stream, Chris, and we did have some. I think both you and I have some sort of recollection that Factor 5 might have been involved in some way with the video compression, or at least like advising on it.
It rings a bell, but I couldn't say for absolutely sure. But I think there might have been some video compression codec in there that has Factor 5 code in it.
Yeah.
okay, that
possible.
would make sense.
Yeah.
It looks all right. I talked about this in the DF Retro we did on these games, and it's obviously not quite as crisp as the PS1 version, but it looks good. But I guess, so specifically tonight, one of the things that makes this possible is the fact that we're actually using the N64 digital mod, which this game was very difficult to stream for years, mainly because between every screen it would change resolution, right? So you'd get dropouts. And that is no longer a problem. So we can actually see this running once we get into the game, of course. So, Alex, anything to say before you get into the gameplay here?
No, it's just 20 years later, I'm still in awe that I'm actually watching this. I'm really curious, Chris. I don't know if you were privy to these discussions, but when Capcom decided they wanted to release this game, it was a test run for another Resident Evil game they were making for the N64 at the time called Resident Evil Zero. So I imagine, like, do you remember any discussion potentially to leave out the CG or even the voice acting from the N64 version in lieu of like maybe just subtitles to conserve data?
I don't remember this, but I bet this was happening in the background. Since I was up at Factor 5 and this was the port was done by Angel Studios down in San Diego, I wasn't part of that initial discussion. When they brought me on, they, I think, were already on the right track. But I bet it was probably many contentious meetings.
Oh, right, I bet. Yeah. I mean, for many years, Capcom just wasn't sure if they could ever do something like this on the N64. So I have to wonder, did they consult you at the beginning to see if it was possible to begin with, or I'm not sure how the whole discussion, kind of kicked off, if you have any insight on that.
But wait, real quick, before we jump into that, a lot of people commenting that the audio with the game capture is out of sync. I have no idea why, and I don't think I can actually fix it here without getting into testing. So for now, I'm just gonna turn the game audio all the way down, and we can turn it up to listen to some music at points. But for now, yeah, it's running behind, so I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think by the time they brought me on, they were already deep in the production, so I don't really know. I know that I got this gig partially because I had a friend working down there for the studio. His name is Alexander Erat. And he probably suggested that they should contact Factor 5 and myself to see if they could convert the audio better. I bet there were a lot of discussions in the beginning to how to get this done, and yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. Let's see here. So, one quick super chat from Swift X Miles. Is it just me, or do I prefer? Oh, well, if you prefer, that's your prerogative. Prefer the GameCube version of the RE1 remake. Something about it makes me prefer that to the HD conversion. What do you think about that, Alex?
Are you asking me? Well, good timing, because I just played the remake on a CRT recently for the first time in, I guess, years, right? And I don't mind either way, to be honest, because I do appreciate that the HD remaster has a lot of tweaks that make it accessible for a lot of players. But for me personally, I guess I do. Well, good timing. Sorry, I do really like on that classic GameCube feel. Oh, it was already equipped. Sorry. Actually, I'm going to turn on auto aim. Let's see here. Oh, can you do that? Or, oh, maybe not. Okay. Blue blood.
Blue blood. Yeah, this whole stream actually came in pretty hot, and that Alex just came back from the airport, and yeah.
Yeah, you just stepped off the plane basically and drove down to John's place to play this.
Exactly.
But Chris, you were just mentioning Alexander Erat, and it's someone that you've known for many years. But you were telling me a kind of interesting story about how he was trying to get you over to the US before you joined Factor 5, right?
Right. So he actually he claims, and I don't remember this, but he said that we were actually in our teenager years swapping games in somebody's basement. He was 2 years younger, so I explained to you earlier that at teenage age, that feels like you're just not in the same age range.
Each year is like a decade, so
exactly. So we weren't like friends back in my hometown, but then he contacted me, I think it was like around 94, that he read an article about me in a German magazine. And he said, "Hey, I'm down here near San Diego, and I just started working for this games company, and you got to come to the U.S. and all that stuff." And I wasn't ready at the time, but we met up a year later at CES in Las Vegas, and had a good time there. He taught me gambling, and then a few years later, I joined Factor 5, so we were at least in the same state.
All right.
So if you had accepted his offer back then, though, you would have been part of Angel Studios rather than Factor 5.
Probably something like that. But I mean, he
Wow.
came to the US through his parents, and I don't know if at the time Angel would have supported me getting a visa or green card or whatever. But it was definitely something that he said, "Hey, you gotta come to the US and make a career here."
Right.
Wow.
And I was about ready, like in the mid 90s, German game development was really like taking a nosedive.
Yeah, it fell off during that time.
Yeah,
Off the
it did.
wagon there for a while, yeah.
So one thing
So-
I'm actually curious about here is so the music system that you worked on, right? Like, do you remember the origins of this and how you got involved working on the N64 hardware in the first place?
Well, there I don't need to remember much. That was like a major part of my career. I started actually on the Commodore 64 to develop a system called TFMX, which I then ported to the Amiga, and like all the Turrican games and all that stuff were all done with that system. And one of the key components in there was that for every sound that would be played, a little script would run. And I called those the audio macros or sound macros. And it was a very simple programming language, but you could shape the sound in a way that wasn't possible with like a player that had a fixed set of parameters. Because then each time you wanted to change something, to do something different, you would have to go back into the programming and change it, recompile it, all that stuff. So it was kind of like a simple, think of it like a simple basic interpreter with a few commands that were tailored to sounds, and then you could also have like branches and loops and things like that. And with that, you could really shape the sound in a way that wasn't possible before. And this system, we actually tried to patent it, but because I stupidly released the TFMX on the C64 years earlier, the patent office rejected it for prior art. But nevertheless, we ported that to the N64 and called it Musics.
Right.
And it was, at that time I wasn't programming anymore, but the same concept was ported by the programmers at Factor 5 and became actually an official tool for Nintendo. They offered it as a third-party tool for the third-party developers. And yeah, it was able to really crunch the sound quite a bit. I mean, it had MIDI as a basic engine for the music, but then the sounds would be played by that synthesizer that contained the sound macros. So that really made it something special compared to other systems. And then we also had an engine for the sound effects with dynamic voice allocation for the mixer engine, and the sound effects would also have like priority system, so it would suppress some of the game voices, the music voices, but then it was all with like priorities and timers that you could set and things like that, so you wouldn't notice it as much when the game engine would steal voices from the music for sound effects.
Ah, interesting. Now,
This was robust enough that I think this version has Dolby Surround, right?
Yeah, Dolby Surround was actually pretty easy to encode.
Yeah.
Because you just had to like flip one channel over negative, the amplitude, and then you would send it to the speakers in the back. And so yeah, we offered that too. So it was very important when you have like a zombie sneaking up on you from the back.
Right.
It
That's
would
cool.
actually, you would hear the sounds and the grunts and the screams from the back too.
And I
How-
think this is exclusive to this version. I don't think the PlayStation version has that.
Yeah, I don't think
No.
they could do it on the
Yeah.
PlayStation.
How do they like determine like the room positioning essentially? Like what do you remember how that actually worked in terms of determining
No,
where
not
a
ex-
sound comes from?
Not exactly, but I bet the game programmers, they would know if something is
Right, right.
behind you.
That's pretty cool.
So,
One
go ahead, John.
No, so one of the things I'm most curious about. This is the thing that impressed me the most, right? So, the quality of the music is pretty much like almost 1-to-1 accurate, or even slightly better than the PlayStation version. And now the PlayStation version doesn't use digital music either. It's a sample-based sound chip on that, similar to the Super NES, really. But do you remember like how did you actually start to work with the original soundtrack? Did you get did they have like the original sound samples ripped from the PlayStation, or did you like try to recreate them yourself, or do you remember?
I'm not absolutely sure, but I think the music on the PlayStation is even coming from the CD. I think this was
No, it's not. It's
not? Okay.
it's sequenced music played back with samples on PlayStation.
Okay. Well, in any case, I think we had the MIDI files from the original compositions, so that
okay.
helped a lot. So we had to only make sure that the samples would fit into the memory, and do a lot of programming with our sound macro language, and just to like cut it down in memory. But that was the reason why I actually went to work down there near San Diego for a few days.
Yeah, I was going to
right,
ask
right,
you, can you just talk to us about like being contacted to do this specifically, and then your time at Angel? What was your process? Like, what did you do down there?
So as I mentioned, my friend Alex, who was a
Yeah.
programmer on the project, I believe.
He was so Alex Erat was the programmer, but he seems to have had quite a bit to do with convincing Capcom as well, from what I'm looking
Wow.
at.
Yes, I think he was definitely an important part to get us the gig.
Yeah.
And I think they contacted us with the help of him, just contact Factor 5. And then it was decided that I should go down there for a few days to teach them how to use music. Because, I mean, even though it was very powerful from the feature set, it was still quite a complicated system. And then, of course, the situation that they had to crunch it so much, they also needed my expertise to really go in there and say, hey, well, this sample could be like way down sampled, and then you could use the programming language to connect these two sounds and things like that, to make it work in that memory constraint. Yeah.
So what was your time like at Angel then, like working with the team and stuff? Do you have any memories of being there?
So the main guy there who was doing the audio stuff was Paul Lackey.
Paul Lackey, yeah.
And I was actually sitting with him in that room for many hours during those days that I was down there. But then we always had like fun after work to go out, and we had a good time there. And,
That's cool.
Yeah, but it was definitely super crunch mode for a few days there.
Both for the bytes and for your time.
Yes.
Oh man, I noticed. So, how's your run going, Alex? We should check in on Alex. What's
A little rusty in this version, but not too bad. I'm actually trying to find all of the N64 exclusive features that aren't in the other versions, and I found 2 of them so far.
When you run into them, make sure you point them out to us.
Oh yeah, well, Chris was explaining something earlier. I found Dario's note,
Yeah.
All right.
and that's
Yeah, we have a guest, by the way, on Chris's stream.
Yeah, the cat just showed up and is harassing me.
But yes,
Sorry,
Dario's note.
I'm so rusty. I put the statue in the wrong position. I'll just do it later.
That's fine.
Oh boy, amateur mistake. All right.
It's not like you wrote
But
a
yeah,
book about this or anything.
Dario's note is a reference to Resident Evil 3, and that's the character that appears right at the beginning.
Oh, right,
Jill,
right.
Jill talks to him. He was also in the remake as well, and the file just kind of goes into detail about why he's in the middle of the outbreak, how he feels about it.
Oh,
And
right.
that's part of what they call the X files, the EX files.
EX files,
And
yeah.
basically, the background behind that was because this was the only Resident Evil game coming out for N64 at the time. They wanted to add little, I guess, features or extra things that'll give a little bit of insight into other Resident Evil games that weren't coming out for N64, such as RE3. So there are also files that reference RE0, Code Veronica, and so on and so forth.
Oh, cool.
So this came out in what, November '99 was it?
It's pretty-
Exactly.
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah, so this is pretty late, I guess, because 3 would have been out, right? Nemesis?
It came out. It came out in Japan 2 months before this version came out in the States. I think RE3 came out in the US the same month as this, though.
Oh, okay. It's kind of interesting. It is much later than the original version, so it's kind of neat that they put this extra stuff in there, or the EX stuff in there.
Yeah,
Kind of.
definitely.
In retrospect, it doesn't seem like that long of a time. It's just a bit under 2 years. So got the film. What else?
All right.
I got unicorn medal. I got the grenade launcher. I think there's a file here. Maybe not. Sorry.
I'm just looking quickly over the chat, and there's a lot of messages for Chris. Just people reaching out and saying they are huge fans of you, Chris.
Yeah,
So
thanks, everyone.
it's a bit hard to sometimes keep up with it, but if you send in super chats and stuff, I'll click and check it out.
Exactly.
So, but I just want to mention that people have been expressing, and also for Alex, some people loving your book. So
Somebody
you.
asked about Manfred Trends, if I know him. I know him, but
I think you
haven't
met
had
him a few
contact with
times.
him. Yeah, but I haven't had contact with him for I don't know, almost 20, 25 years or so.
Oh my goodness,
Crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think most people haven't had contact with him for a long time. So,
Right.
I mean, he's out of the industry basically, and they're doing well from what I understand. So, all the credit to him, but I don't think he's coming back into the games industry.
That's a shame.
Yeah, good programmer and great games. Alex, when you were doing your book, I'm curious. You spoke to some people officially, you spoke to Kamiya, I assume, and things like that. Did anyone mention anything particular about the N64 version regarding, Angel Studios' work or the music from Chris, or anything like this?
Yeah, somewhat. I had a lot of conversations about that, but I spoke mostly to the Japanese development team, and I guess their priorities for this project were very different from what Angel Studios and Factor 5 were focusing on. But I spoke to Okamoto-san about this, Yoshiki Okamoto, and he was pretty much Capcom's head producer at the time. And yeah, according to him, that the whole reason this port ended up happening was because they really wanted to have Resident Evil games on a Nintendo platform, and they were willing to go through all the trouble to make it happen. I remember them being very happy about the final product, but I do think that they thought it took a little too long in retrospect, and
Wow.
I think they had wanted it out earlier than it eventually did. Because if you think about it, a lot of Resident Evil games came out around this time. Code Veronica was on the radar. RE3 had just come out, so it seemed a little unusual that the N64 would end up with an older Resident Evil game.
I have when it comes to this game in Japan, I was at a dinner once in Tokyo with there was a lot of game composers, such that it had just been a game audio show, and we were having the after party dinner, And quite a few of the composers there, Yonao-san and some other folks, were huge fans of Chris Huelsbeck's music, so they kept asking me questions about Huelsbeck. And I mentioned just, in bypass that, he also worked on Resident Evil 2 or Biohazard 2. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't make this work together. They didn't figure out the N64 connection here and all the work that went into it. So I remember I had to sit there and kind of explain to them this whole process of the game being converted by an American studio and then bringing in the German composer Chris Huelsbeck to help with the programming side. So I don't think it's a well-known fact maybe in Japan that all these people were working on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Audi-
actually, this came out in Japan way later than it did in the States. I
Yeah.
think it came out the week before Code Veronica launched.
Yeah.
And I think it came out a day after or a day before Resident Evil Survivor came out. And also worth remembering, it came out, I think, a month after the Dreamcast version. So I don't think there was a lot of attention in Japan on this version specifically.
Also, the PAL version came out after the Japanese version for N64.
Yeah, it came
so
very late.
They were both in the year 2000. So Dreamcast was out, Code Veronica was out or around the corner, and the port of this for PlayStation had already come out. Sorry, the port of this for Dreamcast had already come out as well. So it was a bit late, but I don't think, obviously it was a huge amount of work, I think, to get this working at all. But I think, Audi, we should probably tackle some super chats, wouldn't you say?
Go ahead.
So, first of all, from longtime viewer Sandy B, he oh no, here we go. Would you rather be able to fly, but you can never hide your giant wings, and they're always getting in the way, or be able to control all electronics with your mind, but you smell burnt toast all the time? Chris?
I don't know. I'm not having much of a problem with burnt toast, so I think I'll take that.
All right. Well, if you could control all of the electronics, you'd be like, imagine what you could do. You would become the new version of TFMX yourself.
Yep. I could rule the world with that.
Exactly. And then we have another super chat from Ego Mezel, who says, much love from the Retro DF community. Why, thank you, sir. That's very nice. But
if I can interject, this is
Please.
another
Jill's
RE2
report.
N64 exclusive file. So this is kind of like a recap of Resident Evil 1, since that wasn't on N64. And obviously Jill went on to star in RE3 as well.
That's right. I've seen a few people talking about various quirks of the N64 version, and I guess one of the things you might have noticed if you're watching this at 60 FPS that the sometimes the screen looks to have bob deinterlacing, and that's down to actual deinterlacing. The game does actually change resolution often, and it does sort of vary depending on what's happening on screen. So it can change between screens, and this is why it was so difficult to use with an upscaler for so long. Because, you open a door and it'll drop to 240p, and then you go to the next screen and it switches back to 480i. On a CRT, that's a non-issue. But on upscalers, it takes time to switch. So you would get like a black screen and no signal for a few seconds, which is too long for this game. So it's basically unplayable on most upscalers, except for the RetroTink 5X Pro and this mod, which is the N64 Digital. I assume the Ultra HDMI also does it correctly, but I can't confirm. And yes, anyway, it's hard to keep up with everything, and there's so much to manage.
You're running the ship. But
Exactly.
let's see. So, yeah, Chris, going back to your career in Japan, it's kind of interesting to see the games that you have released there, because Biohazard 2 is one of them on N64. But you also, of course, had the Japanese only release of Jim Power on PC Engine CD,
Which is
which
amazing.
One
The soundtrack is so good.
book, the very
Yeah.
first Red Book music product. Yeah.
and my personal favorite of yours, probably of all time.
you.
And that one has researched a bit lately in Japan for whatever reason I cannot figure out, but I keep seeing fan art of Jim Power that specifically
Wow.
hashtags PC Engine and stuff. So I guess
It's
there's
wild.
some sort of 2chan meme going on at the moment with Jim Power.
There was a
But,
re-release recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that had
Ah.
something to do with the resurgence.
I don't think so. This seemed to be specifically in Japan. So,
Okay.
and the people who put it out, I don't think have any presence in Japan. But yeah, it has come up quite a bit. And then, of course, we had Super Turrican on Super Famicom, which is quite popular. And one of the favorite games from the man who runs M2, Hori-san, always mentions
That's
that as
right.
one of his favorite games because of the music.
Nice.
It's cool.
So,
One
yeah.
quick note here I wanted to say, they were debating the size of the cartridge. It's a 512 megabit / 64 megabyte cartridge, which is the same size as the 64DD discs, if I recall.
yeah, that's right. So this could have been. And Alex, do you know, was this ever at least Resident Evil 0, was that ever planned for the DD?
Yeah, it was initially.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense then.
And then when this became possible, they moved it over to the cartridge as well. But then that game eventually got canceled.
So
Well,
You mentioned
yeah, I got
earlier that-
moved.
you mentioned earlier that the game on the PlayStation was shipped with 2 CDs.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would be like roughly 1400 megabytes
So,
of
the-
space.
You're truly correct. I think the reason it's split though is so because of the 2 character thing, they actually reuse a lot of data across the discs, right?
Right.
So it's not
Yeah.
like 1400 megs of unique data, I would say. But yeah. Another super chat, kind of unrelated, but that's okay. We can handle it. From Solid Crusader 89. It says, "Hi John, when can we start seeing truly next gen AMD FSR quality games on PS5?" To answer that, I actually think there's a lot of other better solutions than FSR on the PS5 right now. So I wouldn't, I'd be curious to see it more though. And if Ratchet and Clank could do 40 FPS, why not other games on PS5? They absolutely could. It's just up to the developers to implement it. So it is totally feasible, and it can be done on the Xbox as well, of course. So it's not a problem. It just requires 120 hertz output. And another sort of super chat donation thing here from a friend of the show, Felix Klinge, who's a friend of mine here in Germany. And he says, "Greetings to everyone. Resident Evil 2, an absolute timeless masterpiece." I agree, sir.
Is Felix the same that works at Kaiko?
He's
Possible, I don't know.
they're sort of he's adjacent to them in some way, if I recall.
Ah, okay. All right. It's in the same building.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Not
Maybe
exactly.
you can
his-
clarify if he hears it in the chat.
if
The
he
blast
wants.
Yeah, if he wants. But that's a blast from the past for you, Chris, because of course you're
Yep.
one of the founders of Kaiko,
Yep.
where you
That's
made
true.
Apedia.
Yep.
Which also has great music.
Thank you.
Incredible music.
That's kind of a theme, I guess. So,
I get the feeling that you made some good music for Achikura, Chris.
Thank you.
That's good, man. So let's check in with Alex over here. So I don't know what the camera situation's like.
Apparently, someone thinks I'm in Tokyo right now. I got
No.
a message, and they're like, "What time is it there?"
I can assure you, he is right over here.
Yes, he's currently in Frankfurt at an undisclosed location.
That's right. We're in the streaming barn. Out in
Keen,
the
yeah,
country.
which is affiliated with Kaiko, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, exactly. So it is the same building then, this Kaiko. Cool. And they are affiliated.
So, Chris, what was your feelings on the N64 the first time you got to work with it?
Did you find it to be buttery smooth?
I have a special place in my heart for the N64. It was a challenge for sure because I thought like after PlayStation we would go full CD on everything, and then Nintendo comes out with another cartridge-based system, and I mean, even to some extent, the later ones don't have that large of a disc that you could completely stream everything. So we had to like come up with a system that could still use somewhat crunched sounds in terms of like sequencing them with MIDI and having like a sound set instead of just like you would put in a game today, like an MP3 or an OGG file. But I wasn't in the cards back then, and so yeah. But we tried our best, and I think we succeeded.
There's actually a super chat from Totfrot? Tofrot?
Yeah, Toothrot.
Tufrot. Okay, Tufrot. I guess it's a Monkey Island reference or something. But that's a question for you, Chris, that kind of goes into this. Were there games on N64 with soundtracks that impressed you? That you didn't do?
Yes. I'm blanking right now, but a Metroid Prime.
That was
The
GameCube.
first Metroid. What's that, GameCube?
Yeah.
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 Thought there was one on N64, but maybe not.
Maybe you worked on it and they canceled it.
No. Then really I don't know. I didn't play that many. I mean, I liked Mario 64. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And it had good sound too.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
What about Tornado? How do you feel about that?
So our internal projects that were kind of continuations of the Turrican franchise that got canceled, unfortunately, twice.
Oh.
But it would have been fun. I'm still hoping for continuation of Turrican, of course.
Someday, I'd love that.
There's a chance.
It's always a chance.
Now with the re-release, with the comprehensive re-release of all the existing Turrican games, I think there's a chance more than ever that there might be a follow-up.
Yeah, of course. That's always the hope. So, yeah, I guess during the N64 time, I mean, you moved to the US during this time. You were working with Factor 5 doing Star Wars, of all things, probably the biggest franchise in the entire world. So it's kind of natural that I don't think you had too much time playing other games. I think you were pretty busy handling your own music for, John Williams'
that was an insane time.
Yeah,
creating the Rogue Squadron games.
Hey, Alex, why don't you stand still for a second? So let's try to listen to some of the music. Even if it's delayed, it should still be okay. So I'm going to turn up the volume for a moment. It's probably going to be delayed because that seems to be a problem tonight.
I think there's music in this room.
Oh, okay.
Should probably go down one. There's definitely music in here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's zombies. So we do have a super chat though that from Square Window. This one's for Alex. It says, Alex, thanks for the facts on GameFAQs back in the day. We'll pick up the book. Seems Capcom are denying the existence of the first 3 games since the remakes. Hoping for a compilation, but seems unlikely.
Me too, and never give up hope. I completely agree that, the remakes do not replace the originals, and that Capcom should definitely get on that at some point.
All right, so chat, let us know if you can hear the music here or not, and if not, or if it sounds messed up, I can switch it off. The blood being blue, by the way, that was a choice we made at the beginning of the game. We asked Chris, "Do you want blue, green, or red blood?" And Chris said blue. So that's what we went for. I feel like blue is more of a Turrican color anyway, so it kind of makes sense.
That's right. Bluish silver.
Oh man.
Someone in the chat, by the way, mentioned Doom 64, and I just want to highlight that's an excellent soundtrack, and just the sound design on N64. So,
Cool.
Aubrey Hodges.
Can they hear the music?
Says it's okay. It probably is still quite delayed, though. I don't know yet, but it's... I don't know why it's delayed. I've never actually used the N64 digital through this specific capture card, though, within OBS, so it's possible there's some weirdness with it. But we'll find out. Oh, wait, it looks like it... Well, it might actually be okay.
Maybe it's okay.
If it goes out of sync again, just let us know, and I'll turn the sound back off. But anyway...
So, Chris, you mentioned Paul Lackey, who worked... he was the guy at Angel Studio that was kind of handling directly the music stuff. And do you remember if he had like any specific issues that stood out, like something that he in particular had trouble with the game, or anything like that?
I think it was mostly the sheer amount of stuff
Yeah.
was pretty insane, and then in the beginning it would have not fit in the beginning what they were doing. So I actually, when I went in there, I showed him quite a few tricks with the sound macros that finally made it even remotely possible to get all the sounds in.
Yeah. What was his reaction to that?
He was amazed and shocked at the amount of work that he would have to do in order to make it work. But in those few days, we really made like an enormous progress. And then from that point on, it was just like working through it.
Yeah, what was your connection to Resident Evil at this point, though? Had you played any of them, or was this brand new to you at this point?
Just that first one on the PlayStation, and then of course I tried their dev builds for a little bit, but that was pretty much it. Yeah. I'm not too much into horror into that horror genre. Right. It scared to be Jesus out of me, that first game. Oh my gosh!
At the time, it was genuinely revolutionary and shocking to have that kind of, cinema feel on video games, and then being the actual victim of the slasher villain was a feeling most people were not familiar with. So,
totally.
So one thing though that the chat kind of reminded me of, Chris, you were already in America obviously during this period, but do you remember much of censored German releases? Because I've talked to a lot of friends, and there was so many games that were like super censored over here. Like they would often replace enemies with robots, for instance. And apparently in Resident Evil 3, they just like blink the zombies. You kill them and they just like blink out of existence and stuff like that.
Actually, the first commercial game that I made music for that was released by Rainbow Arts was immediately going on that index. It was censored immediately. It was called Soldier, and if you look at that today, you would like totally laugh. Why would they even like think that would need to be censored? It was so ridiculous. On the Commodore 64 was the super low resolution pixel graphic. So then over the years the standards changed and they got a little bit easier on stuff, but it's pretty ridiculous what they did in the early days there.
So you actually worked on the very first German censored video game?
I don't know if it was the very first German game that was censored, but it was the first game that I worked on for Rainbow Arts.
Oh, okay.
This was actually with Hans Ippisch. He was the creator of the game and the programmer.
And he would go on to do fantastic things like Bad Cat.
Yeah, that too, yes. And then he was running a publishing house, actually magazine publishing for a while. And of course, now he's working with Tommy Tallarico, trying to get their new game console off the ground.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, I you guys have done so many crazy things over the years. It's pretty interesting for sure.
It was a very interesting time, the whole
It was, yeah,
Rainbow
it really
Arts
was.
to Factor 5 and then going freelance eventually. When did you first go freelance, Chris?
Yeah, I was on and off actually over the years, but
Yeah.
then of course when Factor 5 USA had to close for bankruptcy, I was
Oh
pushed,
yeah,
tossed into
the freelance
freelance again.
lifestyle.
And that was in end of
2009.
2008.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2008.
early 2009. Yeah.
That's when you landed in my arms.
That's
Yep.
right.
Then we started working together, and yeah,
There's
the rest
actually
is history.
Yes, ancient history.
Indeed.
There is a super chat, and I can tell you that these monies are from Norway. Aries Morandi says, "Hi, Chris Huelsbeck. Do you remember the music from Katakis on this Commodore 64? I still listen to it today, 33 years later. 10-year-old me is gushing like a schoolboy."
Thank you very much. But why would I not remember the music from
Right?
Katakis? That's a good question. But anyway, yeah. So that was Manfred Trent's second game that he worked on. The first was actually Gianna Sisters. Not many people know that.
Oh yeah.
But Manfred did a lot of the graphics and the level design for Gianna Sisters.
Oh man, that's so cool.
And Katakis similarly had issues because it was
Yes.
very similar to another
R-Type.
game called R-Type.
That-
But
that
your
seemed-
version was so good that Activision decided to ask you to work on the official R-Type.
Yes, and instead of actually suing Rainbow Arts, they asked Rainbow Arts to do the port for them.
Which is incredible. But that's
Absolutely
another
incredible.
that's actually another connection you have to Japan, and one that actually does come up a lot in my conversations with Japanese fans, is the fact that you have done probably the best theme songs to R-Type. And you've done
Oh,
3.
yeah.
You've done Commodore, you've done Amiga, and then you did the iOS one. And I think the iOS one is kind of a forgotten gem of yours.
Yes, yes. Amazing project for sure. And the fact that the arcade version didn't have like a title music gave me
Yeah.
the chance to, compose my own music for it.
Which is
Awesome.
funny, isn't it? Because like the original doesn't have title theme music, so you just sneak in and make 3 title theme musics for the same
Yes.
game.
Yes, yes. The reason that the Amiga and C64 versions, which were developed at the same time, were different was that I felt like after coming off the C64 that I didn't want to do like a simple port of the music because I
Yeah.
felt the Amiga deserved something better or something different because of the sampling capability. So I wanted it to sound more cinematic there. And yeah, and
So-
also I had a lot of music in me at the time, so I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
just want to spruce up the C64 composition. I came up with something new.
You
That's
still
good
have a
stuff.
lot of music in you though, because you have your Patreon, where
Oh,
you do
yes.
produce new music.
Thanks for
That's
bringing
right.
that up. That's my latest passion project.
Making your original music on Patreon. It's actually
well,
so good that Digital Foundry makes use of it as background music.
We've used it
Yeah,
in some
the-
videos. It's great.
Exactly. The kicker about it is that I decided, so this is like about 6 years ago that I started that. And then a year in, I decided to make all the music royalty free. So everybody can use those music pieces. And there's over 50 now,
Yep.
over
That's
50
awesome.
tracks. And they're all very different in styles. So there's something for everyone. And also it's just like music to enjoy, of course.
It's good. Yeah.
But you can use it in your YouTube videos and other things.
Yeah, royalty free. It's pretty cool. You have quite a few followers now, so. But I actually did add a link to your Patreon in the description, so if you're curious about it,
Oh yeah.
just go to the video description. You can find a link to Chris's Patreon there.
Yep.
And
Thanks.
that definitely you
Yeah,
put out
definitely
quite a lot of
check it
music
out.
these days. So
It is a lot.
you're
Um,
far from retired.
Absolutely.
So we should check in on Alex real quick. How's he doing over there, Alex?
Is he scared?
Not bad. Nothing amazing.
How do you feel the run's going so far?
Pretty good. Yeah, I've been injured a few times, but I haven't gotten lost yet.
That's good. That's good. And by the way, we
So-
should note, just to confirm, he is playing on the real N64 hardware. You can hold up the controller there, and we're using that. I said it before with the N64 digital mod. So he's actually playing on the CRT right now, and I'm simultaneously sending the digital video into this stream here. So yeah, it's working pretty well. How's the CRT treating you over there, Alex?
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm actually really surprised how good the game looks on this.
It makes a big difference. The N64 version is very sharp, but
Absolutely. You're mentioning the CRT, how important that is for classic games.
yeah.
There's a show here in the US called Storage Wars, where they go into storage lockers and clean them out, and they always throw out these CRTs.
Yeah, I
because
know.
They say they that's worthless crap, and I'm always thinking, oh no, send it to John.
Send it all to John. Just freight it over.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another
exactly.
boat docks in Frankfurt full of CRTs.
They
So-
only knew.
Oh wait, so I see some confusion. Somebody say Alex playing on console? Never. You're thinking of Alex Battaglia. This is Alex Aniel. It
There's
may
a
be
lot
hard.
of Alexes.
It might be hard to see on the little camera here, but this is not the Digital Foundry Alex.
Yeah. It is not.
But,
'cause there- Alex Aniel, Alex Battaglia, and we had Alexander Erat earlier as well. So
That's
just
right.
keep track of all the Alexes.
So I want to get back to some of the so the music stuff is here again.
Yep.
So by the time this came out, you had already done Rogue Squadron on N64. But I assume, do you remember when you were working with Angel Studios on this port, were you guys also already kind of in early production on Rogue Squadron 2? Like, were you bringing musics to the GameCube at that point, or was that after this port?
I believe it was around the same time.
Right, okay.
We had already started ramping up for that, for sure.
Do you remember your first impressions of the sound hardware on the GameCube when that came in?
I just, with every generation, they definitely got better. At least we had more memory because of that mini CD.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we actually were able to stream some stuff, but it was still not as much or elegant as like a PlayStation 1 or the follow-ups with those massive CDs and a Blu-ray later, but it was already helping. We were able to stream some of the music off the CD.
Oh, right. So you were able to actually just do straight digital playback for some of the tracks, and then the other stuff.
Only some of the tracks. I remember, like, we had a Battle for Naboo, which was essentially the bastard child of the Rogue Squadron series.
The
Oh, yeah.
1.5.
That was a
But
very
I
late
actually- I
N64
actually
game,
liked
wasn't it?
working on that. I enjoyed that. I was able to, in fact, for the reboot of the whole Star Wars franchise, I was invited up to the ranch, and we were able to make copies of the original scores from John Williams,
Right.
Wow.
which was just seeing that, his handwriting on the paper and all that stuff was amazing. And I really enjoyed working on Battle for Naboo. And I think the Duel of the Fates was the piece that we definitely streamed, or parts of it. I kind of did like a hybrid where I sliced it up and played it back as a sample, and that was streamed And
On
then
N64
otherwise would
even. That's amazing.
You're safe now.
yeah.
Because Rogue Squadron 1 on N64, that was not... There was no streaming music in that? Or
No streaming at all. It was
And then
all
I
samples and
found the
MIDI.
girl, and I cleared the wreckage that was
But then
blocked
Battle
by
for
the-
Naboo, you started working with some sampling on N64.
Yes.
Or sorry,
A
some
little bit-
streaming on N64.
Exactly.
Aha. That's really cool. Wow. I need to play more of Battle for Naboo. That's the one of the Rogue Squadron related games that I haven't played much of, to be honest. But it's... What do you... You've played it, right, Audi?
Yeah. I bought it when it came out, and I always liked it. It was kind of like a in-between game, of course, between 1 and 2. But at that time, this is before Chris and I knew each other and started working together, but I was just a massive fan, so I bought anything, basically, that Chris was working on. And I had done so since 89, I think, was the first time I became aware of your name. And
Wow.
at that point,
What was that?
I bought magazines and basically looked for any company that you had worked for, or your name specifically, because you actually did interviews back then. That was very unusual for Western game composers to do interviews in magazines during the early 90s. But you were in like Super Play and stuff.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
it was a little bit easier to follow your career. You also released CDs, like
Yep.
Shades and whatnot. So I could actually, support you by
Purchasing CDs.
back then I think we had to send money order, right?
Yeah, there were different ways of like doing it, but yeah.
Yeah,
Not,
I think
not
it was
as
on.
elegant as today.
I think it was by To Be on Top, maybe, that I started getting CDs, or maybe the next one. But I definitely remember the Apedia CD, and that was money order, which was like you
Yeah.
had to go convert to Mark, like Deutsche Mark, and then send some.
Actually, I just want to... I got to chime in about Apedia real quick. So if you're watching this and you guys are like game music and you haven't heard Apedia, go look it up on YouTube or something, and at least listen to the first stage music. And I think you'd be kind of shocked by just how good that is. It's really
Yeah.
good. And
Definitely. By
Audi,
the way-
how do you spell that, by the way? It's like... because it is a weird spelling.
APIDYA.
Yeah, APIDYA. Look that
It's
up.
actually it comes from the Latin classification of those kind of insects.
Yeah, the bee.
Yeah.
John, we have a couple of super chats.
All right, let's do it.
So from Revenant, $2. I don't think you read this one.
I did not.
John, are you making retro more expensive again? Are you?
I'm trying not. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, that's. But that does seem to happen a lot.
That sounds like a rap album, making retro expensive again. Or
making
something.
retro expensive again. But I guess that's kind of the thing is like, when any channel talks about something, there's always the risk of driving up interest. Like we saw it with Flipnik, unfortunately,
Yeah.
where a lot of the cheaper copies kind of just dried up. But I mean, I feel like this game is so well known at this point, right? Like it's not like a secret here. So whereas I feel like Flipnik wasn't really well known, and that happens sometimes. But like Resident Evil 2, you kind of should know if you want this or not.
I have a feeling in the future, though, that Chris suddenly will be signing more N64 Resident Evil 2 copies than ever before. That's,
Well, that would be good.
People discover now that you were involved with this. There's another super chat. It is 10 reais. Hi, John. When are you going to do the CRT shader special? I think they mean in emulation. I think that would be more me than you in some ways, wouldn't it?
Because I mean,
Yeah.
I just use CRTs instead, right? Like I don't really
Right.
use too many like shaders necessarily, but they are cool. They only
They're very
replicate.
impressive. And
they
it's
only
something
replicate-
it's something that I've been very invested in, just kind of getting a proper digital setup. I do also like play on original hardware and whatnot, but I like having the options, and especially
so-
for capture and whatnot.
And it does look cool, but it only replicates the visual look of the CRT tube rather than the properties of the CRT, right? So you don't get like
Yes.
the motion clarity, for instance, or like the way it illuminates, which is very different from flat
You
panels.
can definitely there are actually shaders now that are stepping into that territory, and with run
Well,
ahead and whatnot, you also have the response.
The problem though is that most people are still playing on like an LCD, and
Yeah.
LCDs have the inherent flaws that can't be replicated. Like a shader can't solve the inherent limitations of an LCD, really. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Like
Yes.
it's
Some
just
stuff in the future might get better with like the high, what is that called?
Oh,
The high luminance LCDs or something, where
exactly
you have like really bright areas, because that's what's part of the CRT, is that it is an electron beam that
exactly.
illuminates the front, which has a very different quality, but they're getting to it, I think.
One of the wildest things though is if you go back and look at a vector monitor, and there's some
Yeah,
cool shaders for that
Vectrex.
as well. But if you look at a vector monitor, especially a black and white one, the beam where it hits the screen can be so bright that it's brighter looking than like any sort of HDR implementation you might see. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
it's really cool to see.
Yes.
yeah, the Vectrex was definitely a thing, wasn't it? We played one quite last year.
Total
at,
seizure machine.
Caesar Machine. Actually, I wonder if I think you know this guy, Chris. We went to Wolfsoft, Klaus Wolf,
Oh yeah, Klaus.
and he runs a game shop and modding shop. And I think he had some involvement with Factor 5 back in the day. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know his real last name though, but maybe he doesn't want it out there.
We should check in. Let me check in with Alex. Alex, what's the state of the Resident Evil?
I think we're a good 1/3 of the way through. Yeah, we're about to take control of Sherry.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Looking everywhere for you.
So, Alex, who do you prefer playing as when you play just for fun?
We've got to go.
Leon for sure.
If we
Okay,
stay
so
you're a
here,
Leon
the
guy?
monster will find us.
Yeah,
Let's go.
in general. I think people have come to poke fun at me for that,
I won't.
but I really do like Leon a lot as a character. So.
It's your favorite character, right?
Don't you trust me?
Yeah, pretty much. Him and Jill.
It's not
So-
wow.
fair.
Sorry,
Look at my
Redfield
daddy.
fans,
He's over
but no
there.
thank you.
I heard him call my
Although,
name.
it's fun playing as Claire, actually, in this
He
game,
must
too.
have been attacked by
I'd
the
love to see a
monster.
matchup between Chris Redfield and Chris Huelsbeck, though. That would be pretty good.
The hero of Resident Evil versus the hero of the Amiga.
Exactly.
Ooh, whoops.
Oh man.
So,
it'll be fine.
Alex, I've been dying to ask you this actually.
Mhm.
What did you think of that Resident Evil Netflix show that just came out?
Infinite Darkness. I thought it was all right.
No,
A lot of people
You're-
didn't
you're
really like
joking.
it, but I think it makes for an interesting origin story for Leon, because I guess his whole shtick is that he's kind of anti-government, but he's working for it.
Right.
And I felt like the introduction of that plot line was it came, I guess, out of the blue, and we haven't really seen anything to really contextualize it. But I thought Infinite Darkness was kind of a good step in that direction.
All right.
I can't believe
Yeah.
what I'm hearing. I
Between
could not stomach this show.
saving the president's daughter in one game, and then like in the next thing that he appears in, he's like, yeah, the government sucks and they're not making anything any better, and then they have the RE6 plot line. But like I felt like the transition wasn't really that clear until the Netflix show came out. So I like that, but I understand there were a lot of issues with it in terms of pacing and a lot of the plot. A lot of things that happen in the Netflix series are pretty crazy. So I don't know. Yeah, it was all right.
All right.
Well, there has to be some of them too. We have a super chat here from Richard Tucker, who says, "Do you know the Warhawk PS3, not PS1? Have we played it? Obviously, yes. We have both played Warhawk.
Yeah, so I've played less of Warhawk PS3 and more of PS1 version, but I do remember the PS3 version being pretty interesting. At least there was some cool tech in there, like the water.
Then we have another super. Oh, did you have more to add on Warhawk?
No, that's enough.
Oh, we have another super chat for Chris. $5 for Chris from Stephen Roper. Hi, Chris. I'm curious about your process when writing music for the N64. Would you first write sheet music and then transpose it into MIDI?
No, in fact, that was one of the advantages of the music system. You could actually run it along with your audio program, your DAW, and feed the MIDI directly. So it would act like a synthesizer sampler that would be connected to your MIDI sequencer. So I really composed the stuff while I was also creating the sounds for it.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So before I go into the next super chat here, I'm curious, Chris, because you said that Nintendo, got this and optioned it as a third-party tool. So tell us about Nintendo approaching Factor 5 and you about this. What was their kind of feedback to you about this, and just how did this all come about?
I think they just saw Rogue Squadron and what we've done there, and they were interested because they didn't have like a tool for their third-party developers that they could offer. So they actually licensed it as a middleware, if you will. And also the fact that it could do Dolby Surround and those things, that all helped.
Right.
And that it was like a complete system that also would have music and sound effects in the same package.
Yeah.
So was this was music something you would just run like, was this like a Windows program or something, or?
Yeah, we had like a Windows version of it that would be like a little player with MIDI input, and then the editor would talk to that player and upload all the sound data and stuff like that, and then you would just like play the MIDI through your MIDI keyboard or your MIDI sequencer. It's like that. And then in the end it would be there would be like a conversion process to run it on the actual N64. But that was basically part of the development. You would just include it basically in the compiling stage.
Oh, okay, cool.
And this would come to influence a lot of the GameCube's audio future, right?
Oh yeah. We used the same system on the follow-up generations of hardware. With enhancements, of course. It got better and better from each generation because of the streaming that we could bring in, more voices.
Yeah.
Could you use larger samples as well, like just like higher quality samples?
Yes, exactly. And
So
eventually we also fixed the loop point problem, because the 80 BCM compression had some issues with loop points where they had to be on certain frames, and eventually we got that solved. So then we could freely assign loop points.
So when do you remember kind of music's stopping production then, or like when did you guys stop updating musics?
I think it was really like after when Factor 5 folded in the US.
Oh, so it was actively developed up until 2008?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but that version wasn't one that Nintendo had.
Right.
These were like they really only had the the N64 version of musics.
Right.
And I think we might have also made a version for Game Boy. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think we updated it and gave it for Game Boy. What was that? The Advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do at least remember you telling me about the Game Boy Advance version. So if it didn't make it to
the
market,
later ones, I'm not sure if that was included.
Yeah. So another super chat here from James Walter saying, Audi, I love your editing and trolling of Rich. John, you're a legend. Also loving your guest appearance on Kane and Rince. Thanks for everything.
Thank you very much, James. appreciate that. Yeah, the Kane and Rinse podcast. That's a fun show. I like those guys. Good gentlemen.
And there was another one from James
Also-
Walter.
Oh,
It's another $5. Someone's eating pizza tonight, boys. Also, I brought this up before. Please do a DF Retro where you read through an old issue of Mean Machines with Richard. Actually, if you're a part of our Patreon, one of our upcoming ideas and shows that will be done is Magazine Memories, where me,
Yep.
John, and Rich sit down to read different magazines that Rich
That's
worked
right.
on, and perhaps even some that I worked on. So
yeah. All right. So, time for our every few minutes check. Alex, how's it going over there?
Getting my ass kicked by lickers.
He's dying.
Oh, whoa! that is
Yeah, it's
that is.
actually it's actually a little hard to play because I can't hear the game.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
You can't
That's
hear
right.
the monsters.
Oh, yeah.
I
what-
can't tell
sneaking
where
up
they
on you.
are or how far they are from me. It's
That's
not a big deal though.
interesting. It's an interesting
Actually-
challenge.
It's a
Keeps
way
me on
you've
my toes.
not really played the game before, so
Now,
perhaps.
this came up in the chat, Chris, and maybe you remember something about this, but people are saying that the N64 game Star Wars Battle of Naboo has audio commentary. Do you remember anything about this?
I vaguely do, yes.
Okay. Did you participate in this?
I don't think I did. I think that was the producer and maybe Julian.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting. I can
Definitely.
imagine that if that had audio commentary, that has to be the only one, right?
On N64, yes.
Yeah, on
they did
N64.
Yeah, because on Rogue Squadron 2, there's also audio commentary and the making of, which you can see Chris. If you do unlock that, you can see Chris at his studio at Factor 5
Cool.
back then. So,
Oh, that's right. That was a pretty sweet studio.
Yeah, it was.
it was you and Rudi Stemba in that
Yeah.
video.
In fact, one anecdote that I always like to tell is the last year, I think 1.5 years before Factor 5 US folded, we built a dedicated studio that was, it was extreme. I mean, we had a lot of hardware. We had special, they were THX approved studios. So it
Yeah.
was like
Oh,
special
wow, okay.
walls and special things in them, and then Factor 5 went under, and the studios still survived for about 2 years, and then the building owner ripped them out.
Oh,
I know.
oh man.
But speaking of being ripped out of our lives, Chris, I know you're a bit busy, and we'll probably sit here and play a little bit more Resident Evil 2, but I know you have to head back into your work. So, yeah, this is awesome. It was great hearing your stories about Resident Evil 2 and your work with Angel Studios.
Yeah, thank you. Still, I have still to finish up a few loose ends on the Turrican games, the re-release, but it's coming. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. No, it's pretty close actually, I think.
There are
And,
some audio surprises coming for that, some
Yes.
guest appearances, which sound very exciting and amazing.
You're also involved, which is awesome.
Yep.
So anyway, so I'm getting back to that, and then I have a few other things, and then of course the Patreon project. Like usual, I'm actually very close to the point where I will release 2 tunes each month.
Oh, wow.
So then
Wow,
the,
okay, that's great.
the library will grow exponentially. And then who knows what's next?
There's always something exciting around the corner when it comes to you. So, and I'm sure we'll bring you back again for many other topics. I think based on a lot of the questions in the chat today and super chats, I think Star Wars Rogue Squadron would be an excellent time to sit down with you again and talk some memories, because people seem very interested in hearing your stories about working on Star Wars.
Absolutely.
So, where can they follow you, Chris, on Twitter if they want to follow you?
Just type in my name, you'll find me.
Chris Huelsbeck. All right, yeah, and actually you can find it in the video description here too. You can find Chris's Twitter handle, and you can
The-
find, of course, your
My
Patreon.
website is still down, by the way, though.
Someone's
lost-
supposed to take care of that.
Yeah, I lost the whole website a few months ago, and now it's just going to tarekandsoundtrack.com.
Which is not the worst place to end up
No.
On a redirect.
Not at all.
I've
But
seen
I am
much
still
worse.
in the process of rebuilding the site, and it's gonna come at some point. But who needs websites these days anyway, with all the
I
social
know.
media and stuff? But yeah,
So before you leave, Chris, there's one last thing here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a super chat that is 200 Swedish kroners, a little bit over
Right.
$20 here for you. It's from Savage
Oh,
Regime.
yeah.
It is one of the greatest Mega Drive current composers that is in
Yes.
the industry, and he's
Awesome.
saying shout outs to Chris. So
thank you so
legends
much.
meets legends.
Absolutely, I
The
love
cat
it.
also says goodbye here.
Yeah, the
My
cat's here.
microphone. Yeah.
I just saw on your camera the cat just totally bounced off that microphone. And
Yeah.
and other people are sending you hearts and the
Thank
goodbyes.
you.
So
Thank
yeah,
you, everyone, and have
Thank
fun
you.
playing the rest of the game, and we'll talk soon again.
All right, Chris.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Bye, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you. And then as soon as he, there we go.
There you go.
Now I get to rearrange the stream
yes,
again.
we
here.
we didn't account for this going a little bit longer than Chris's schedule, so we'll just have an empty void for Chris.
Well, I actually have a solution.
Oh, are you gonna stick Bubsy up there? Oh, there you go. Why not? Atlantis.
What? Oh,
There
Wow.
we go.
That is close enough, I'd say.
of
Anyway.
course.
There we go.
Oh, are you familiar? Are you familiar, Alex, with the
I don't think he is.
the magic that is Phoenix Games?
I
I
don't.
am not.
I didn't introduce him to Phoenix Games yet.
Well,
I'll
I
have
know
to
what
do
you
so.
guys are doing tomorrow then.
Exactly. Well, that was great to have Chris here as always. He's always a pleasure. Very fun
Absolutely.
to chat with.
And if you just
Man.
dropped in, sorry that he had to leave, but he was here for about an hour and a half. So go back and watch. Of course, when this is over, you can watch it on video on demand. See all of Chris's wonderful stories about working on this. And yeah, he was actually quite involved with this, which is
Yeah.
surprising.
Exactly.
Bit of an unsung hero on N64 as a platform, but also Resident Evil here as a port.
Exactly. Well, I guess we should probably catch up on some super chats then, while Alex continues his run.
Are there any more since the ones I read? Yeah, there are.
Yeah, there's several up there.
Wow, okay. Let me get a swig of water, so you take the first two, John.
All right, so we have Emerald Celestial, who gives us £5. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. This is such a fun DF retro. I wish you four could do this every week. Yeah, that would be cool. Old Resi is so comforting to me. This game has a big place in my heart. Love you all. Oh, that's awesome.
That's an amazing comment, and as you'll find out on this DF Direct Weekly, I get very easily emotional these days, so this is another one of those, but thanks so much. And if you want more, Chris, on Digital Foundry, the channel, there are, or at least one, there's an interview from 2 years ago at John's place with Chris, which is
That's
a
right.
fantastic interview that I
Yeah.
think was released in the summer times and didn't really catch the algorithm
No.
at that time. So I'll probably add a link to that in the description later, but do go on Digital Foundry, search Chris Huelsbeck. And that interview is one of the, it's one of the better ones you ever did, because there's
It was-
so much information in there.
There was a lot of info in there. Yeah, we should
Yeah.
post that again. Maybe tomorrow I'll tweet that out and
Yeah.
share it again.
And Chris will be back. We work with Chris all the time, and he's a good friend of ours. So there's many opportunities for Chris, and for our patrons or Patreons or whatever they're called,
Patrons.
patrons. Chris will be joining our Discord server eventually, and then we can chat with him there and ask questions. So
It's cool.
that'll be a great thing for him and the fans.
All right. Onward and upward. So from Lady Kukiri, would a DF retro on Dark/Demon Souls be possible? Dark Souls especially had some pretty nice materials for the time, and totally, that's an interesting one, because Dark Souls showed up a lot on our channel over the years because it's a more recent game, but it's not that recent anymore. It's like 2009 or something, if I recall. But I love that game and that series, so that is something I could eventually revisit. I've actually thought about, rather than just doing Dark Souls, like actually going back to Kingsfield, and then also talking some about that as well, because I feel like it's really important to look at the whole thing there.
Yeah. It would either like a two-parter or something where it's like Kingsfield and then part 2 Dark Souls, or
Souls and
Souls.
Ninja Blade.
Yes.
Let's see, we have another super chat from our Chris Fratz, who's
From Retro RGB.
yes, who says, that reminds me, I need to resubscribe to the DF Retro tier on the Patreon at some point soon. Yes, you do. We would enjoy having you back. So, and then you can write some sweet stories on Retro RGB about stuff.
You'll get the inside scoop.
You get the inside scoop, exactly.
We'll leak details about Rich's personal life to you.
And then we have from Adam Keys, John, I love your multi-plat releases deep dives. Your multi-plat release deep dives. Would you consider a video on Command & Conquer comparing PS1, Saturn, N64, and the new remaster?
No.
That's actually a pretty good idea, because the Command & Conquer console port is like shockingly great. Like it's really good. That could actually be fun. I have a Japanese Saturn copy of it for some reason, and it's a good version. It is weird to hear it all kind of dubbed though. But
yeah, it's always quite interesting. And there's Command & Conquer on N64, which is interesting. And then wasn't there StarCraft on N64 as well?
Yes, there was StarCraft 64. If anybody who collects PAL N64 games, well, they shudder when they think about StarCraft 64.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the most expensive one, I think.
Yeah, I did not have it.
But you want to go ahead and take the next super chats?
All right. So from Marat Dugmanov, I think I did that right. Hi guys, love your stuff. Do you think 60 FPS boost to 1S code on Series S is superior to PS4 Pro 1440p 30 frames per second? If that's too off topic, it's not the problem.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, in general, I prefer more frame rate, so, I would rather play at a slightly lower resolution at 60. But I guess it's more disappointing when a game loses the 1x enhancements for FPS boost, right? Like, I would like to see both retained when possible, and sometimes it is possible, so... But usually, in most cases, I do... Unless it was like, if it was an original Xbox One game, it's like 720p versus 1440, or like if it's a 1X game, like 4K-ish, then it becomes harder to choose, because 720 is pretty low, but I typically prefer frame rates. So...
Alright. From by the way, Alex, you bought a Series S, didn't you, just recently?
That was my second one. Yeah,
that's your second one?
I bought one in Japan at launch last year, so I keep that one in my bedroom, which has a 1080p TV, and I keep my Series X in the living room.
And then you bought another Series S, so that
here in Germany, because there's tons of them available here. So
don't say that too loud.
Yeah, don't say that too loud. People will be very, very angry at you.
I thought I'd experiment with it and see how homebrew worked.
Oh yeah.
And we've done just that, and the answer is it's pretty interesting.
It's very interesting.
You can do some cool stuff on there.
Yes, if you want to know more about what they're talking about that we can't say much about, check out MVG's video.
I think we could say stuff about that. I think it's fair. It's
okay.
fair
We're independent enough. Whatever.
It's just retro. There's other stuff, but we were installing RetroArch in there, so we could play or RetroArch, however you want to say it, just to play with different emulated consoles. And we have Dreamcast working fairly well. It's quite good. had some issues getting GameCube running. A lot of black screen with sound, and so there's definitely some quirks to figure out. But it's not the Xbox's issue. It's just RetroArch being RetroArch, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with RetroArch, as we alluded to with the question about shaders. And
yeah.
John and I have had an idea, and we will probably execute one day, just kind of, modern emulation setups, just a fun kind of, either on
Yeah.
Patreon or whatever. But it's something that I care a lot about, so we'll probably get to that one day.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really cool. The Series S is a nice extra bonus for this kind of stuff. It's a very nice seamless setup.
I know that, I mean, this is off topic, but as the question said, it's fine. Or as we said to the question, it's fine. But like, when it comes to the Series S, I'm actually always really impressed by it, just what it's actually putting out.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a
I think people are
surprisingly great
looking at it
little machine.
backwards. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And considering what it is, I'm just like always surprised by how well it stacks up. But that's for another day.
Exactly.
From J Rouge. I'm sorry, I am really bad at these letters coming after one another. G Ruse. Evening, guys. Question for John: have you ever considered doing a DF retro on the original Stalker games?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Huh. Possibly. I hadn't thought about doing that anytime soon, but you know, I wouldn't rule it out because those games are quite interesting technically.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool stuff in there, so definitely.
When it comes to topics for DF Retro, now that we're doing them monthly and doing them together, the kind of way this is being set up is different, as we have like a schedule now with topics kind of
Yeah.
set. Whereas, back in the day it was much more just kind of like, well, we want to do this month if we had time.
Well,
now it's
yeah,
more just
in the
like,
past,
we have.
I mean, I was the one doing them all completely
Yeah.
on my own, and I pretty much decided all the topics, and it was literally just like off the cuff, like be like,
Yeah.
I feel like doing this, and then I just start right then. But now there's a lot more planning that goes into it.
Yep. And it's great fun, but that means also that like topics, it's we do actually write down most of the requests and suggestions, and it goes into a long list that will never end. But we have some very interesting months coming up with some really good episodes, and the latest one was, of course, Super Star Wars, which was very fun.
That's right.
That was it was strange to see that scene with blue blood.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
What? Thanks, Chris, for choosing Blue Blood.
Chris is he's not here, so I'll answer for him why. But he has never been too comfortable with blood and overt violence. So
Okay.
this is actually what he does generally when he plays games, is to tone it down. And totally understand him. Not
that's
everyone
interesting.
enjoys that.
I think Kamiya-san would like this feature too, because he also doesn't really like violent games, even though he
Which is
directed
funny,
this
isn't
one.
it?
Yeah. Oh man.
Another super chat from Pedro Fleck. It is 5 reais, so to the bay. One of my favorite games in my favorite console, streamed in one of my favorite channels. Thank you guys, you're awesome.
Oh well, thank you.
I began reading that as a question, and then I realized it was a comment.
That's right. It's a comment, not a question.
Well, yeah, one of my favorite games in my favorite console, streamed on one of my favorite channels. That's how we should say it. And yes, thanks so much. Love that everyone's checking in.
I want to challenge the chat to something right now. If you look at this, at the little portrait I'm using there, in lieu of Chris, since he's had to go, can anybody in the chat name the specific game that portrait comes from? And if so, also the character name. So,
That's a deep one.
If anybody in the chat can name this, I will read the name and the answer right here. So we're watching.
And I'll notice. Another super chat from David Reichle. I think it's a German name, so I'll say it like that. I love the Chan. OT, but with the upcoming Indiana Jones movie coming out, have you guys considered doing a video on the N64 Indiana Jones titles or title? Yes, because we've thought about doing Indiana Jones, the episode. So
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And it looks like the sound delay came back. So my guess is that it's something to do with the fact that, so even though we're using the N64 digital, it is still like internally swapping resolutions constantly. And I wonder if it's doing something with the capture card, or I don't know,
yeah,
some kind of weird compatibility thing that I wasn't aware of. But it does seem to be kind of hit or miss. So no idea why, but I've muted the game again.
it's fine. We're talking over it.
Exactly. Alex, how goes it?
It's pretty smooth. Yeah, for the last few minutes. Beat the boss without taking a hit.
That's good. That's good. We're
Huh.
getting through this. Scenario 2 is almost over.
Is it?
All right, wait. This is scenario 1.
This is
Claire.
scenario 1. Yeah, I say there's
Claire.
another 45 minutes left. Maybe.
Okay.
Are you actually aiming for beating the whole scenario?
Well,
I guess.
we're gonna find out. So he's
I mean,
Hasn't
that's
saved the game
I'm
yet,
fine.
So
he's
I'm
getting
fine.
he's getting there though. We're not that far off, but I guess it depends on the speed of its last areas. So
yeah, this next part's pretty quick. It's just the sewers. That doesn't take more than like 15 minutes, maybe.
So when you were writing your book, though, like how when it came to this version, I mean, I read your book, but when you were writing it, how much did you feel like? How important did this game feel to the overall story of Resident Evil 2?
Like just any version of Resident Evil 2, or
No, I mean
or
like
specifically
when you
like this one.
when you evaluate the whole history of Resident Evil 2 from PlayStation, where does the N64 version rank? Do you think this is among the like more important and interesting stories about the game, or was it for you more like a trivia, like just kind of like this is neat, but I don't personally think it's that big of a deal?
Oh, it's in the top 3. Like
Mm.
in terms of like Resident Evil 2 related trivia or like factoids you can know about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Resident Evil 1.5 is obviously the most important, I guess,
Yeah.
story. And then maybe the PlayStation version is the second most important, and then probably this one comes in third. Just in terms of how interesting what transpired and how interesting it is to know how they strive to put this game on N64.
Yeah.
And I think RE 1.5 was another interesting, very. I would say it shaped the direction of the franchise in ways that we still kind of feel it today. Even
Right.
like I feel like if Resident Evil 1.5 had come out, the series probably wouldn't have been as popular as it turned out to be.
that's true.
Uh,
And somebody was asking what book. It's this book right here. So
Oh,
this
yes.
is Itchy Tasty, an unofficial history of Resident Evil that Alex over here wrote. It's a very excellent book with a lot of detail. I mean, you live in Tokyo. You were actually able to speak directly with a lot of the people that had worked on these games. There's a lot of interesting information and anecdotes, and just it's a really cool book to follow along. And I think there's a lot to learn from it if you're interested in the series.
I think it's been adopted. You don't like roaches?
Oh yeah,
I get so much trauma from this room because sometimes you can get stun locked
Oh, you
as
totally
you
are, huh?
are witnessing, and I'm still in
Wow.
fine condition, so I guess it's fine. Like 20 years ago, I died in this room, so I get really anxious when I have to pass through here.
do you ever have
Well,
like
you at least
nightmares
survived
of,
today.
of like you're sitting in your flat in Tokyo and like an actual cockroach shows up right as you're in that area?
It's a nightmare, but it's also real life, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Yeah. Once it's summertime in Tokyo with those 100% humidity,
show.
35-degree days, it has very little correlation to like cleanliness. It's inevitable to run.
Oh
into
yeah, they
cockroaches.
just show up. Yeah,
They go everywhere, yeah.
yeah. It's in Europe. They're not. It was a phenomena like the cockroaches. There were phenomena I was not aware of until I went to the States, and then of course got more familiar with them. And then Japan.
Yeah.
As you said, it's just the humidity makes them plentiful.
Disgusting.
So,
Absolutely
I'm
disgusting.
not a big fan of bugs, but somehow cockroaches don't make me like weirded out. There's spiders and whatever else, I'll scream like a woman. But cockroaches, I don't mind. I don't.
Oh, you can hear
I
me
mean,
scream.
I watched
Cockroach
Bob's
shows up and-
Apartment. I find them cute. So
I like spiders, but I do not like roaches.
But I was gonna say about the Alex's book. I think it's pretty much been adopted as kind of an essential reading for Resident Evil fans, right? So the feedback to it has been, I think, quite surprising in that sense. I've seen that book mentioned in circles. I never expected it to come up. So,
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Wow. I'm really honored to hear that. Yeah, that's the first book I ever wrote, and honestly, I just wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I think I rewrote the book 2 to 3 times.
Oh, I've written a few books, and yes, I'm all about rewrites.
That's how it goes.
But
By the way,
they're necessary.
You have a shout out here from Puerto Alto for you, Alex. He says, "Shout out to Alex for not dying during the roach part." So,
Oh yeah. God.
good job. Good job.
Thank you.
And Chris Fratz sends another $5 because we're having beer with that pizza. Also, have you seen Narel's impression of Rich from his video on Control and Skyward Sword? I guess that's a YouTuber then? Narel?
Yeah. People link
Okay.
me to that. It's pretty funny actually. He does a pretty good Rich impression, and he shows like a frame rate graph where the line's just like all over the place, and it's just like he's basically just saying stuff that means nothing, but in a very Rich like way that was admittedly fairly entertaining. So
In the here and now, fascinating.
exactly. It was also very.
Why are you
bespoke.
here? Oh, that's for me specifically.
Oh, okay.
Marat Nugnamov, Marat Nugmanov says, Did you ever experience specifically digital gaming addiction in your life? Of course, your job is not exactly gaming, but still. If we experience digital gaming addiction, that to me feels like people who sit on like Candy Crush or something all day.
I mean, I just assume he's talking about, I would imagine, people that play like constantly for like hours
Clicker
upon
games and
hours a
stuff?
day. No, like any game.
Any game? Okay. Yes, I haven't experienced it as me. I after I'm done with work, I generally don't turn on games unless it's retro stuff. But I do have a few friends that I would consider probably addicted, like just play Dota and stuff all day. So maybe, but addiction is a pretty heavy word, so I don't want to throw that on people.
No.
Yeah.
It seems to usually happen with like a lot of online related games where like there's like a persistent world and people can really get into it into an almost unhealthy way. So, but I've never experienced that myself because that's an interesting one though for sure.
Well, you, Alex, I mean, you're as busy as the rest of us, so I guess you don't really have time for any addiction other than proclaiming your hatred for Dino Crisis.
I mean, that's a de-stressor for sure. I wouldn't call it a hobby.
It's just it's the way you cope.
Yeah.
We have to get the Jaw Muncher on here to play Dino Crisis now, just to kind of balance the universe.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. The only reason I can pick on him as much as I do is because I actually brought him to dinner with Shu Takumi a few years ago when he visited Japan. So that's, I think, the Dino Crisis fans' ultimate dream is to meet the
Yeah,
director of the good Dino Crisis games. Anyway,
He would go
Oh,
on to do
3.
Ace
Okay.
Attorney, right?
yeah. So the Greatest Attorney Chronicles just came out, I
Yeah.
think, and that's very much his latest project. So
Cool.
There is a super chat, believe it or not, from Pete.
Wonder if he likes
you
Tank
guys
Tank
are-
Tank. I like Tank Tank Tank.
Tank. That was fun. You guys are pretty much the reason I don't get work done sometimes. Would love a DF retro on Twisted Metal on the PlayStation 1. Keep it up. Oh, you don't
That'll-
want us to talk about the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 game? Or it's only
So-
on PlayStation 3, no? They skipped 2?
No. Twisted Metal.
Black?
Black is on there as well
Yeah,
as Twisted
Black,
Metal
you're right.
Head On. From they got the PSP game got a port to
Yeah.
PS2 as well. So,
That's right.
Um.
Wasn't there like a Twisted Metal Junior or something as well?
Oh, Small Brawl
Small
on
Brawl,
PS1.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, that's one you know they just ran out of ideas, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not? It would give me a reason to talk about WWE Crush Hour.
Oh man, I see somebody mention the game Nocturne though. Do you remember? Have any of you guys played that? I remember this on the
Yes,
PC.
of course.
Nocturne.
Yeah,
It was also sort of a pre-rendered looking background, but they had some really impressive shadow technology going on in there at the time.
Yeah.
It was a very cool game actually.
Did that have any connection to the Masquerade?
No. No, I don't think so.
Twisted
God, I
Metal
like the music
Pog.
in this scene.
Yes.
Dun 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 dun. Dun. I can't hear the music, so I'm just
You have to
memory
make it
here.
yourself.
Go ahead.
Dun 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 dun.
You know, watching because I'm watching this via the Discord share window, and these FMVs don't look bad at all because it's already such a small window with
Yeah.
compression. So this looks like any
How's it
other
look on the
version.
CRT?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more the frame rate that
Yeah.
bothers me.
Oh,
if anything.
also,
lowered
there's
it,
like
yeah.
also the peak brightness on it seems reduced somehow. I think this was something they did to save on compression, or not to save on compression, to save on space.
Son of a. Dun 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 dun.
Okay,
dun.
Alex,
Maybe
do-
he said son of a here. Dun 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 dun.
You're doing all right.
And of course, that's not Hunk, but you can unlock Hunk and play.
Oh yeah, you can even. There's a cheat code for him actually, so you
Oh,
don't even
yeah.
have to beat
Don't have to beat
however
it then.
many scenarios it takes to unlock them.
Yeah, it was a bit of a on the PlayStation, and then there was Tofu, which was even more difficult. Is Tofu in this? In
Yeah.
N64? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, the only one that didn't make it in was Extreme Battle Mode.
Oh, okay.
Wonder why not. I guess it probably ran out of space.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
guessing at some point there just isn't space, right? Like this is the
Yeah.
biggest it'll get. This is the biggest cartridge size, right?
Yeah,
What's your-
64 megabytes was the largest cart produced.
Yeah, there was nothing bigger than this. So
Which again,
Yeah.
it was the same size as the 64 DD
DD.
discs, which is it kind of reminds me of what happened with the Famicom disk system. How they're like, oh, you got more space on there, until suddenly you actually could do larger cartridges with mappers, and the FDS discs were actually small then. So
yeah, the FDS discs were small, loaded, and had two sides.
Yeah.
So it's like
yeah, having to you basically on most games you start it up, get the main menu, and then it's like switch to side B.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Alex, what do you know of the N64 version of Zero then?
So that made it about 20% to completion.
All right.
Yeah, it started out on 64 DD, then they moved it over to N64.
Hmm.
They ended up getting rid of it, I guess, due to a mix of technical restraints. I think even the 64 megabit cart wouldn't have been
Yep.
enough to support the game in the end. And
Yeah.
I think they also realized that the GameCube was going to be a better platform to support this specific game. So yeah, I mean, I
And
think the final concept for that game made it over to the GameCube without a lot of changes, and I think that's probably why a lot of people find Zero to feel a little antiquated in terms of design, even though it came out 4 years after Resident Evil 2. It's
yeah,
because they designed the game as if they were making it for N64, and then when it transitioned over to GameCube, they didn't really actually perform a lot of modernizations to the design, so it feels a little like a very pretty but old feeling Resident Evil game.
This kind of stuff happened a lot in the series. I kind of feel because, like, Code Veronica is definitely a step up in many ways, but it was missing, of course, the obvious one is the being able to walk up and down steps without pressing a button, which had
Right.
been introduced in Resident Evil 3. But
Right.
since Next Tech had done most of the heavy lifting on Code Veronica, they obviously did not implement some of those features.
Yeah, they didn't really talk to each other that much in terms of sharing features. I
Wow,
think
look,
the only
look at
things
that
from
blue blood.
RE3, the only things from RE3 that made it to Code Veronica were blowing up, like the exploding barrels
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
the 180 turn.
yeah,
Right.
essential. Yeah, it's. I remember seeing screenshots of RE0 in N64 magazine, and it just was super hyped for that. And I really enjoyed what came out, though. I really enjoyed the duology between the two characters having to be swapped and like sharing the inventory with each other and whatnot. I thought it was interesting concepts enough for me to be invested. But I do prefer RE Remake between those two GameCube games.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
Remake is very meticulously made, and I think it's a very successful game because of that.
Yeah,
Probably one of the best remakes of all time, right? It's basically a template of how to make a good remake. So
I
uh,
agree. I agree.
it's incredible. And yeah, I forget what RE0. What was the name of the other character? Rebecca and
Billy
Billy? Billy,
Billy
yeah.
Cohen. Yeah.
Billy Cohen, that's right. And he has some sort of backstory, but it makes no difference at the end, and you never really hear much from him anymore. So
I would say prior to remake, I might go with Leisure Suit Larry and the Land of the Lounge Lizards. How its VGA remake was pretty superb. They
yes,
really
that is true.
they thrust Larry into the next generation with that. So great stuff.
We have a super chat from John, John, John Yen. Hey all, have you ever heard of the Saturn exclusive Bulk Slash? It's a 3D showpiece
Oh
for the
yeah,
system, and it's getting a translation patch soon. Yes, it's one of my favorite games on
it's
the
awesome.
dear
Yeah,
Sega Saturn.
Bulk Slash is cool. Man, I don't know if I can just throw down like favorites though. I like so many games in Saturn, and
Oh yeah, but
but
it's
yeah,
just so good though.
it's really
I
cool.
I love. But man, the next super chat, John, I think you it's someone you've been missing, and I as well as I. But I think
He's back.
you should
It's
reboot.
Yo Yoshio. He's back. What's up, guys? Missed you. We missed you too, Yo Yoshio.
We have missed you. You actually come up in some conversations in our daily lives, and we ask, "Where's Yo Yoshio?"
Where's Yo Yoshio? And he's back, and I love it. And then we have another one from Savage Regime again. That's great to see. He says he caught the Outcast music in the Super Star Wars episode, and now I need a DF Retro deep dive on that game and its tech. And you know what? So the reason it showed up in that episode actually is because I had just finally picked up a copy of Outcast First Contact, which is the remake. So I love the original game. It's one of my favorite PC games of the time. It used like a voxel terrain system, and it was really cutting edge, but also super demanding. But they actually went back and did sort of a remake of it recently, and somehow it flew off my radar, and I was like, you know what, I really need to check it out. And it has its flaws, but the remake is pretty darn faithful and impressive. But the original soundtrack was so good, this orchestrated music, that they just literally brought it straight over to the remake. You didn't need to change it. It's so good.
Lenny Moore has friend of mine, and we usually, when we go to GDC, Chris not here now, well, he would tell you, we usually go eat dinner with him. So
Oh, wow.
definitely somewhere where we can do something with him, with Outcast, because that's a game, and a very interesting game. Technically, very interesting.
The Ulukai. Yeah.
So, but and thanks for checking out the Super Star Wars episode, because
Yeah, for
we're
sure.
huge fans of yours. So
Exactly.
means a lot that people are checking it out. I saw John Yen say that he's on the translation team for Bulk Slash. So why don't you reach out to us on Twitter or something, and I'm sure we can come up with an idea of, if not doing a full dive DF Retro right away, maybe we can at least do a live stream or something and talk about your efforts.
Or something else. Exactly. Like, it would be good. I mean, just, featuring the game and the work being done there to translate it. That's good stuff. We love that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Someone is also saying Burning Rangers deserves a sequel and remake. Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
But if Mitsuyoshi Takanobu-san is not part of it, I don't want it.
I still, I don't think it's what they're making, but I still maintain I would love to see Evening Star, which is all the guys that worked on Sonic Mania, come back and do a new Burning Rangers.
I see it's not a super chat, but you don't. This torture has been keeping up with us for weeks.
Oh no!
It's from Thomas Nickel. It's John, Audi, and Alex. And Alex does not even know how to answer this question. In your professional opinion, won't be any professionalism left here. Which Otifants game is the best?
The Master System one.
You're wrong. It's the Game Boy one, because it has Alberto Gonzalez music.
Well, that has the best music, but the game.
That's all that's worth it, John.
All right.
It's not even that good on Master System.
See, the thing is, though, is like Alex is now aware of it because Thomas immediately assaulted him with all versions of the Autofans.
Oh yeah, you did meet.
And he was just like, "What is this?"
I assumed wrong. I'm sorry, Alex. I didn't know you had been subjected to the horrors of the terrible European mascots.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Someone is actually reminding me of something I was going to bring up earlier. The Japanese source next version of RE2. Alex, what's your
PC?
Yeah.
That's the basis for I think is that the HD version or someone made a modded version
right?
with like HD textures and
Oh yeah. The Source Next stuff, I think that implemented the higher quality FMVs, which I think were first in the Dreamcast version.
Yeah.
It was just because the reason Resident Evil 2 had been available on PC originally at earlier on, and then they kind of brought it back again with an improved version. So
back in 2006.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know the reasoning for them doing that, Alex?
I think they just wanted to make it Windows XP compatible.
Yeah, because the first two Resident Evil games on PC are very picky. I find they really like Windows 98 and 95, I guess, and you're not really going to get good results installing those versions on a modern machine. I found by default. So, yeah. Oh, but somebody noted Code Veronica is the hardest Resident Evil. I want it to be Capcom's next remake, and I'm sure Alex would agree with you.
I mean, I would love for Capcom to remake it, but I don't agree it's that hard, to be honest. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I always thought it was a very
you've played it too
Resident
much.
Evil game to play, mainly because most of the bosses have hacks that make them very easy to kill with very little ammo. So it's just a matter of making sure that you play efficiently enough so you have enough healing items and such.
Exactly. That's pretty good. We do have another super chat from Yo-Yo Yoshio, who says, "Have you heard Narrow's Richard impressions?" Which somebody else asked about, so that must have made quite an impact. And yes, we have. It's pretty funny, I have to admit. So, yeah. But the autofons, those things, man, it just looks like weird, like rhino things wearing diapers. I don't know. Or it's just the baby one, I guess. I don't know. The design is not my favorite, to say
It's
the
very
least.
strange. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and
The
let's check.
seamless HD project is
Yeah,
what
that one.
you mentioned. Yeah.
That's the dolphin.
Yeah.
We looked at that for RE3 using
For
dolphin.
RE3, yeah. I think
But not
RE3 was
too-
based on Dolphin. RE2, was that also based on Dolphins?
Sounding like it is, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, though, is like the Dreamcast and the GameCube version, like all of those were ultimately derived from the original PC version, as I understand.
The GameCube
But
version?
I think so. Like
No, that's based on the PS1 DualShock version.
Oh, but I mean, for the technology behind it, because the way it renders is much more like the Dreamcast and PC version. But
Interesting. But yeah, like feature-wise, it's definitely based on that PS1 version. Like it doesn't have any of the like customization features that were on the PC version.
oh,
'Cause in the
right.
PC version, I think the PC version also had a specific difficulty mode that was also in the Dreamcast one, but that was not in the GameCube one. So yeah, like Resident Evil 2, like all the different versions are all over the place in terms of feature set and how they perform.
Right.
Yeah, I would say feature-wise, this is probably aside from like the blood color and the violence levels and the X-Files, it's probably the least feature-rich one of all the post PS1 editions.
Right. But oh wait, tell me this. Somebody in the chat brought this up. I almost forgot. We talked about this in the episode, but the Tiger 99X version of Resident Evil 2, which is a lot like the Gamecom version, but it's the 99X was a specific standalone kind of system.
Right.
I don't even want to say system. It was very, very questionable. The thing is I never actually got to play it myself. I had to use another video on that, but it's very, very, very lousy. Have you seen it? It was in the video, but maybe it's been a while. It's like a big flip phone thing with like one of those little dot matrix screens on it, and it's terrible.
As expected.
Yeah, I wouldn't even really count that as a game. That's more like a piece of merchandise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which my
Wow,
book didn't really
you
cover.
just stripped away its rights as a game. Wow.
Yes,
It's
the
that
historian
bad.
has spoken.
It's that bad.
You can't even. It's not a game. It's merchandise.
Aha, here we go. I like the way they do these scenes here, how they actually use more 3D scenery, like for the background there, and although it does look weird the way it jumps like that.
Yeah. I remember at this time when it was a little bit after, I think it was during Nemesis was out, they made action figures of RE2, and it was kind of uncommon to get action figures based on video games still at this point. And my brother collects action figures, so I remember like having the very like Claire and Ada Wong and all these action figures. Did you ever get the action figures, Alex?
I did. I owned a bunch of them. I recently gave them away to a friend of mine, actually.
Wow. Look at you.
You see the you guys noticed
so nice.
There was some like Z fighting going on with the textures on the background when he was further into the screen there. It's weird. Forgot about that.
I see 2 super chats, John.
All right, let's do it.
€5 from Ruben Vera. Amazing stream. The image quality is superb even in the FMVs. I'm thinking of modding my N64 with this or a simpler RGB mod. What do you think?
So I actually, prior to this, I was using an RGB mod. They're awesome. The thing is, though, is that if you get this mod, like N64 digital, for instance, it gives you analog RGB output with deblur functionality as well as the HDMI output. So you basically end up with the option. If you want to use analog output, you can. If you want to use HDMI, you can, and you can use them simultaneously, which is how we're doing this. Alex is playing in RGB on the BVM over there, and then what we're seeing here is the HDMI output. It's just simultaneous. It works really well.
I would say it depends a little bit though, because if you, for example, if you already purchased like the RetroTink 5X, for example, then
Yes,
maybe
that's
an
true.
RGB mod would suffice.
Sufficient.
I mean, yeah.
The N64 though, in general, has kind of a noisy output. I find, I don't know, in general that it
Well,
does
it has
benefit.
built-in noise.
Oh, it has that too. Yeah, but it's a tricky one. But yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, but I will say that, I mean, for capture, for streaming like this, and just the general ease, man, the N64 digital, among the finest pieces of kits I've gotten. And I mean, we keep saying this about Pixel FX and stuff, and it's because it's such quality. But I mean, the PlayStation 1 digital, the N64 digital, and then the DC digital, which it's called now, I think.
yeah. I think there's probably
all
just
good.
stuff related to the name HDMI. Remember when
Probably.
stuff changed from SD
Yeah.
to whatever they are now? It's the same kind of thing, I'd imagine. I don't know for sure.
So I'd say if you like a little bit more customization and just the ease of it, I'd say get the N64 digital. You can't go wrong. But if you already have a RetroTink, then comes down to budget. But of course, our
Exactly.
dear friend Yo Yo Yoshio is back, and he says, "What are your thoughts on awesome 20 frames per second possum?"
It's actually lower than 20.
It's lower than that.
I mean, it can go up to 20 sometimes, but it does actually go lower than that. It's real bad. I think that's one of, other than like what, like was it race driving or hard driving that was on there? I think it was hard driving.
Mhm.
That's probably choppier than Awesome Possum, but there's not many games that run worse than Awesome Possum on there.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, that has kind of the excuse of being a 3D polygonal
Yes.
racer.
I know. I agree. I'm just saying.
I see a message from Lasse. Says, Audi, any opinions of Hybrid Heaven? The only sci-fi wrestling game after all. You are wrong, sir. Popeye 3 on the Commodore 64 is a sci-fi wrestler.
Popeye 3.
But I have a lot of thoughts on Hybrid Heaven. I wrote about it in my book about wrestling games, and
Right.
it comes from a lot of experimentation from Konami's side regarding, I think, one of the traces of it comes down to like a wrestling adventure game that they were looking into for, was it the 3DO maybe? It goes back for a few years, and it basically, Hybrid Heaven is an interesting kind of like ideas from other projects coming together for Hybrid Heaven on N64.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a, I shouldn't say trash can because I think the game is cool, but it's kind of like whatever sticks, put it all in here, and we'll definitely do more with it. And I would like to write more about it because I'm sitting on quite a lot of details on Hybrid Heaven, but it didn't fit into the subject of the book.
Right. Yeah, what an interesting game that is.
It
I feel
really
like
was.
it's so bizarre, and just the problem I think is it got hyped up as like, oh, this is the N64's Metal Gear Solid.
That was the biggest problem, and actually,
And
the people working on it would tell you the same. Was that it was during an era where everyone was asking, "Is Metal Gear Solid gonna come to N64?" And then you see this character-driven third-person action game, and you, of course, automatically assume that, oh, it's from Konami. This is very similar. It's our Metal Gear, and it was nothing of the sorts. And much more of an adventure game, and of course the battle system is really intriguing. It's a turn-based wrestling game, so yeah, we'll
right,
definitely,
yeah.
we have a lot to say about it, as you can tell, but it's for another day.
Yeah,
I'm curious though, Alex, any thoughts on Hybrid Heaven?
Never heard of it.
Oh, okay.
Whoa,
Then
all right.
Sorry.
you know where to learn about it now, though.
Exactly. Any thoughts about your progress in Resident Evil 2?
Almost done.
It's
It's
getting
going
there.
so well that I don't even need the handgun anymore because I have so much ammo.
All right.
Should be okay.
We're getting there, folks. reaching the
Dead
end
Rising Wii was a wacky port. I even forgot that existed. I still to this
That
day
was.
remember they released that video of the tunnel when you drive, and like the the amount of zombies were not the same
No,
as on.
it's
the
a very
Xbox.
different game, but yeah.
Yeah.
But somebody actually mentioned the RGB mod for N64 is way better than composite, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, but not just because it's RGB, because the composite's actually not bad on N64. It's specifically with these mods you can usually engage what they call de-blur, which turns off like the N64's default VI blur.
Yeah.
So it dramatically cleans up image quality. I think I don't like that blur pass. It's pretty ugly actually. So being able to turn that off and get RGB at the same time makes N64 games look much nicer.
Yeah, and we recently talked about this it's not out in public yet, but that we did an N64 retro play. Where we talked about Signal and stuff, and we talked about S-Video. And since then, I've talked to a lot of people from Europe who told me that I thought that the PAL units did not have S-Video, because back then I don't remember that being an option. Apparently, it has support for it, but it never got cables to do so in Europe. So yeah, man, the N64 was a brutal time to be a European.
Actually,
let me just tell you,
it's worth noting that specifically PAL and NTSC N64, the situation there is probably the worst it's ever been in terms of region locking, where there's no way to actually easily play PAL games on an NTSC system or vice versa using carts. There are ways to do it, but it's like literally switching between two chips or something. Like it's a very complicated thing because just due to the way it's locked out, I found so frustrating.
It's nice with an EverDrive though, because I think most of the N64 PAL games were very badly converted, or just not converted at all, rather. So, for example, like with the Lilith Wars, which I prefer over Star Fox 64, not just because of the name, but you also had the Lilat language option.
All right.
And that, because of this, you can actually get the ROM that is NTSC with Lilith Wars. So if you have an EverDrive, you can play the PAL version, but in proper 60 hertz. So it's very interesting just how this whole situation of this console, and with the N64 Digital and the EverDrive, I've been actually exploring this a lot more.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Oh, he's probably going to the vicinities. We do not have cameras in there. So, yes, John will be back. Yo-Yo Yoshio sends another super chat saying, I feel like I'm becoming part of DF lore. But you and Alex both are part of the lore. Our wiki will be updated to include your names.
Keep the questions coming.
Alex, what kind of brought you to Europe this time? What can you tell us about your European trip? Because is this your first trip since the pandemic started?
Well, I went back to the U.S. twice, but that's where I'm from, so it doesn't quite feel like a real vacation.
Right.
I just kind of wanted to get away from Tokyo for a bit.
Come right during the Olympics, huh?
Specifically while the Olympics were happening. Yeah, I wasn't really thrilled that they decided to go through with hosting them.
No.
And I don't think there's a direct relationship, but Tokyo is now posting record numbers of COVID day after day after day, and it's just discouraging to watch.
Yeah. It's a bit like watching Resident Evil.
Yeah. You wonder why so many biohazard outbreaks keep happening, and then we've seen right?
Don't ask anymore. We already answered this question.
Now we know.
It's like why does humanity keep screwing up in the Resident Evil universe? Because turns out that's what would happen in real life.
This pandemic has made like so many 80s and 90s like pandemic movies so much more plausible. Back in the day, we would just say that couldn't happen, and now it's like, oh, that will definitely happen again.
I'm like, they can't be that dumb in real life, and then, well,
The Grackler says he loves how chill Alex is finishing this. I remember finding it hard, scary, and huge on the N64 back in the day. It's no match for you.
How many times have you finished this game, Alex? What'd you say?
Probably like 200 times,
Wow.
if I had to guess.
Do
over
you
the
ever
past 20 years.
notice? Do you notice new details ever again now? Like, do you watch like something in the background? It's like I never noticed that.
Oh, it sounds like
No,
no.
You just
Not
you know everything now.
really. There are parts of this game that I skip because I
Oh,
really don't think that it's necessary to do them.
Hmm.
Like I never go into the moth room, so I can't remember if
Oh,
there's an item
yeah.
in there because you don't really have to. There's also the room with the tube that the tyrant was kept in, which I'm going to go in this version because it has a slightly different element to it in this version than the other ones.
Right.
Right.
So, someone's saying if anyone wants to play Half-Life on N64, play Turok 3. Right?
Oh boy, that's a weird one, isn't it?
Back up, back up.
I really enjoy Turok on Game Boy. Those
Oh,
games
yeah.
I have a lot of fondness for, and especially the music, of course. Again, done by Alberto Gonzalez. It's among the best soundtracks on all Game Boy.
That's wild, and those games are neat. Actually, you're
They're
right.
very good, yeah. They're not bad, and the music is just beyond most other Game Boy soundtracks. And yeah, I really enjoy those. So I really wish a lot of that stuff would get like, um, CD releases and stuff. But I think it's probably hung up in rights issues.
Yeah, no doubt. The G vaccine. Oh
That's not how vaccines work, though,
no.
as we've all found out.
Yeah,
This is more of a serum than a vaccine, really.
yeah. It's a serum. Exactly. The way her arm texture intersects like that on that joint. Well, it's not even really a joint. It's just But yeah, that's.
I just love the blue.
Oh yeah,
It changes the
blue.
entire makeup of the game.
It is weird. You're right.
And that was
Huh.
an N64 exclusive feature, no? Changing
It
that
was.
palette?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it in the Dreamcast one? I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's just in this one.
So when you play this, though, you prefer playing on PlayStation or GameCube? Which one?
Ideally, GameCube,
Yeah.
because you can skip the cutscenes in that one.
Oh, I see.
So it makes for very, very quick and smooth replays.
Oh yeah.
Like if you play any other version, you have to
Dreamcast
watch through the
version.
cutscenes.
Oh yeah, that's
Is it-
cool.
Is the GameCube one you can force down to 240p or something?
Yes, you can do that using Swiss,
Yeah, that's the thing.
which made it really awesome. Actually, you're right. That's
Yeah,
a
you
good-
showcased that in the video.
exactly because then you downsample the characters.
As Alex is here now, I would not probably have been on DF had it not been for Alex, because Alex did that Resident Evil 2 video, which is fantastic.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
haven't seen it, the DF Retro Resident Evil 2, you can see that, and Alex is in it. And when we did Bubsy, the idea was that we should do kind of the opposite, where I stand on the opposite side of the screen that Alex was standing on, and then do kind of the same thing, but for Bubsy. And turned into a little bit different of a video, just because play it off the cuff. But yeah, without that Resident Evil video, I don't know if we would have had that initial idea for Bubsy.
That's a good point. You're right. That was kind of the thing
It's
that
funny.
pushed you to want to do it too. You're like, well, if I can do the opposite of the Resident Evil 2 video, then yeah.
Yeah, as you can, if you go back and look at it, you can see I'm still, much larger at the time, and I'm not in the best of shape, and I was in a very different place in my life at that time. So the idea of going on camera and doing anything wasn't part of my plans. But as we hung out and talked about it, it was like, I guess no one else could do this, could they?
Oh,
Because we needed someone that could be stone faced throughout all this.
No, you're absolutely right. So I should note that for Alex, Carsey's here, by the way, watching.
and judging me.
He
I'm
says on
pretty sure.
the PC version lets you skip doors.
Oh, that's a nice feature. Yeah. Is that the Source Next one? I guess, or
Maybe so. I can't remember, man.
Yeah.
It's been almost like what 2.5, 3 years since I did the Resident Evil 2 video.
Yeah.
Wow.
That would have been 2018 that you did that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we have some more super chat action here as Alex starts to approach the end of the game.
Yeah.
Before that, yeah, this is different in this version. The code, I think, you have to. Oh shit! I didn't do this part. Never mind. Oh, I forgot about. Oh, you can't access this room in this scenario, huh? Never mind. Go on.
All right. See, I have to type M. I like that. Alex, I think you're kind of breathing into that mic a little bit.
You just now noticed.
I did. It only kind of stuck out now. So he's using like a headset that's the way the mic placement is. It was
a very interesting setup today. So a little bit more audio technical issues than usual because 2 people in the same room and then 2 people via Discord made for some interesting technical challenges.
But anyway,
John, super chats.
So Murat is back again, and this time he says about retro. Too many times I've run into people thinking of gaming evolution as something that's getting constantly upgraded. Sometimes people don't believe that we played Super Mario Brothers in 60 FPS back in the day.
That's right.
And that's right, yeah, like 8 and 16-bit games by and large on consoles especially were 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
So, and the PS2 era was also full, like on all those systems, lots of 60 FPS games. It was the PS3 especially that brought it down, though. There's way fewer 60 FPS games there, and even 30 was difficult to get to. The rise of HD and modern tech.
Here we are.
So
yeah, because the focus shifted so much over to graphical fidelity rather than precision and
it
challenge.
also kind of it's specifically more about the capabilities of the machines. Like the reason 60 FPS was done on those consoles is because they had hardware designed specifically to accelerate like tile and sprite rendering, right? So that's why you would get flicker and stuff, because you'd be bumping up against the limitations of that. But as long as you worked within it, you would actually get 60 FPS. And he says Mario John NES. That's what I was talking about. So I said Super Mario Brothers. So
yeah.
But so yeah, that's an interesting thing for sure. So we also have another one from Puerto Alto who says tofu play through next. No,
oh God,
we're not doing that tonight.
Yeah, that. Oof. That's more of a Carsey thing.
Yeah. Also, Director Smiley says Chris rules and Leon drools. Congrats on the book, Alex.
Well, thank you.
Happy
to hear that.
At least the book part.
No, if you like Chris more than Leon, that's fine. Not really
All right.
too hung up on that. I like to pretend to be, because Resident Evil fans can be extremely passionate about things like things like that. But just pick whom you like and go with it. Even though Leon's totally better.
Who do you feel is kind of the favorite in the series in Japan versus the Western fan base?
Oh, Leon, by like a country mile or a country kilometer outside of America. Yeah, Leon by far in Japan anyway. I think it's just different culture, different tastes.
Yep.
Yeah, Japan's never been all about
a hunky boy.
Super muscular, super manly, characters. I think, what's the word? Effeminate?
Yeah, effeminate. Yeah.
Effeminate, characters tend to be more popular. And you see that in Final Fantasy and whatnot. And I think to an extent that's the same with Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And somebody was asking about the speakers, by the way, behind Alex, and yeah, those are KEF R300s. So yeah, for anybody that knows speakers, that's what those are. And somebody else asked, "Are we using the expansion pack?" And the answer is yes.
Yeah, we have to be. It looks too good without it.
Yeah, lots of high res.
We have another Brazilian super chat to the bay. Do you guys have an opinion on a guide to JRPGs from Bitmap Books? I was really bummed I couldn't get it shipped to Brazil the first time, but here's hoping they can resume it for the next batch. Yes, I do have opinions on it because I wrote for it.
That's right.
I think it was a very interesting project. Was very honored to be asked to be part of it. I actually read it back to back when I got it, and it took some time. Actually,
Yeah,
speaking
it's a
of which,
large
I read the Itchy Tasty in one day, believe it or not, as soon as I got it. But yeah, the
Wow.
JRPG book. My only gripe with it was that I felt that sometimes people were they didn't think too much of the era of which it was released. So I felt like, yes, maybe by today's standards, the mechanics are a bit archaic, but when I write about things, I always transport myself back into
Yep, exactly.
where it was released. What is its competition? What was the marketplace like? And then look at that. And but the actual writing of it, fantastic. You know, there's so many people way better than me in that book, so I'm humbled that I could even take part in it. So, but yeah, it's an awesome book. I think it's a resource, and that's what's fun about these kinds of things. When they become resources, I
Yes,
really
exactly.
have so much fun with these books. And Itchy Tasty or certain wrestling books, it's always fun with those kinds of books.
So, Carsey also noted, though, that the expansion pack on RE2 does cause the resolution switching, and that the RetroTink removes the worst of it. But yeah, for this one again, for those that missed it, this is the N64 digital, which does indeed solve the problem pretty much completely. So, as you can see.
Yoshio is back and says, "As a gay guy, I can confirm most of us love Leon."
All right.
You don't need to be. You don't need to be
Well,
gay for that. I think Leon is pretty attractive in most of his iterations.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
I feel like
the CG movies. He looks awesome.
I feel like Chris has a very big gay following too.
Well, he had that costume in 5.
5
Oh,
and
right. That's right.
Revelations
Yep,
and
yep.
6
Yeah.
and well, they're all attractive looking people. So Resident Evil's always had that eye candy it could offer.
They have indeed.
But it's been equal at least. Can't complain. Those costumes. It's great that they got it.
I'm all about Barry, though, to be honest.
Nick says it's not a super chat, but it's just on the bottom of the screen. By the way, if anyone's like, why are you reading some things from chat and some things from super chat? If it's on the bottom, I can see it. If it goes too far up, I just can't keep up. So
It's
sorry
hard,
if someone's been like spanning. That's what I appreciate about you guys and someone like Jeremy Parrish. You guys keep context in mind when writing about retro games. Yeah, Parrish, another guy that's really good at this. And yeah, what a guy. And Alex knows him.
My colleague, yeah.
Yeah. John has been on Retronauts, and I've been on the Limited Run podcast. So we've all had some run-ins with Jeremy.
Yeah, just great stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm very happy to see that Limited Run is putting out the Virtual Boy works and the SNES 1991 works for him. So do pick those up if you're a fan of Jeremy's work, and you should be, because Jeremy does great work.
Oh man, we're getting so close now. I can almost taste it. It's
I want to read this comment from Nosferatu. I went to the local library to see if Itchy Tasty was there and found out there is an audiobook available. Did Alex have any involvement with that?
I did. I chose the narrator.
Mm-hmm. And who is the narrator?
So her name is Cindy Kay. She's an Asian American, I guess, expert narrator or like audiobook reader.
Yep.
Orator, is that what they say? Or
That's right.
Yeah, and I really wanted to diversify the book a little bit. And
that's awesome.
That's why I wanted I wanted the recording to sound a little stoic, a little melancholy, and I think she did a
Mhm.
great job.
It's cool. I need to listen to that one.
Yeah,
That'd be
absolutely.
cool. That's an
And this is not a question I've seen in the chat, but man, I want to ask Alex this. What is your favorite Resident Evil knockoff?
Resident Evil knockoff. Silent Hill, for sure.
All right.
oof. I guess you could say that it was a knockoff, since it
I
does
mean,
seem like it
definitely
was.
came from.
It was clearly Konami trying to get into survival horror after the success of Resident Evil.
I just
even
think it
though-
does its own thing so well that
Yeah.
is there any other than Silent Hill that you can kind of remember you played on like PlayStation during this time?
No, I mean that's the
Like
big one,
Overblood.
obviously.
Are you like trying to coerce me into saying Dino Crisis?
I could be. Well, I'm not saying you need to say it, but I'm just asking.
Favorite survival horror game, Resident Evil. I guess The Evil Within.
Oh, okay.
Would be
Evil
a
Within
good-
was very
A good
interesting.
choice. I mean,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's Mikami-san, so not too surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't think that gets enough credit, honestly.
Yeah, I like that game actually. I like them both.
Well,
They're
both of
pretty
them.
good.
I mean, the second one was definitely weird, but I kind of like the psychological aspects of
Yeah,
Evil
yeah, yeah.
Within.
Exactly. I like how somebody mentioned Deep Fear for the Saturn, which is pretty awesome.
Yes. Rob F sends us a super chat, says to launch Audi's next book, DF retro playthrough of every Jackie Chan
Oh
game.
man. Audi.
Yes, I am working currently on Hong Kong action games alongside another book, which is the full history of Kunio-kun. The Hong Kong action games book does actually cover every Jackie Chan game, and yes, I do think a DF retro tie-in with this would be fun. It would be fun.
And I see Yo-Yo Yoshi is back again. He mentioned, do you adjust CRT geometry to show overscan or no? I do. I
missed
do.
that.
So on the BVM, I actually have presets for all the different consoles on the front numpad, and for most of them, I do have like a thin border around the edge. The N64 though massively overscans, so I actually let that one kind of draw out a little bit. But for most consoles, I like to have sort of the visible window there to get everything on screen.
That's actually that answer interests me. But yeah, everyone's asking about Eternal Darkness. We would love to do a video on Eternal Darkness.
Oh man, what a wild game that was.
Yeah, very strange game. Again, very successful at what it does though, for its time. So
I agree. It was.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot too. Yeah, I played it recently.
Oh, cool.
Silicon Knights, they went on to do Metal Gear, right? Twin Snakes.
They did.
Yeah.
Their whole like the whole situation with Silicon Knights is one of the weirdest stories in the whole industry, I think. Like their rise to prominence and like working alongside Nintendo, and then things did not go well after that. But
Countdown Vampires, I have that. That's that's an interesting one.
There we go.
Wow, you actually finished it.
Rolling credits.
Yeah, these credits are actually a little different than the PS1 version. I think they turned it into scrolling text so it wouldn't be a CG movie.
Exactly.
And
Also, it's worth noting that the way the fonts artwork in this game, if you look at it here, it actually looks like there's bad scaling, but that's not the fault of the mod or anything like that. That's just how it is. Like, you can see it on the CRT as well. The way they scaled the font doesn't look great.
Promotion producer Keiji Inafune.
Yeah.
Paul
So
Haddad.
Sion was in this too, and he was a Street Fighter composer. He started with Super Street Fighter 2. I didn't know he worked on Resident Evil.
Are you talking about Nishigaki-san?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the N64 version credits.
I think
Amigo
Nishigaki also worked
Studios.
on Tournament Fighters on for Turtles. I think that was one of his first gigs.
Alexander, the man.
The man. Paul Lackey, who we mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah.
Thomas Engel. There he is.
Chris
Oh
Huelsbeck,
yeah.
Julian
Dolby
Egg.
Surround.
How do you pronounce that name? Eggebrecht?
Eggebrecht. Yeah.
Egebrecht, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris could join us, but he was here in spirit and then, of course, in credit. So,
Exactly.
what a cool logo this is.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Fun piece of trivia though. This project eventually led to the first Red Dead Revolver, right? That Capcom initially started developing, and then
Mhm.
I think they didn't publish the game in the end, right?
No, and then Rockstar took it up.
Yeah.
I believe it was a very different game than what people know Red Dead for today.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously. Resident Evil DOS.
I miss this red logo with
Yeah, I like
the
that.
drop
I
shadow.
like it, yeah.
I don't like the new logos, except 6. 6 had a very good logo.
Oh, with the All right, let's-
Oh man, I love these illustrations, by the way, in
Yeah.
all of these early games.
Yeah.
I wish we had higher resolution versions of these in like
there it is. One save.
Yeah.
I
I
gotta
gotta
beat
be
a
ranking 'cause
B.
I used too many first aid sprays, I think.
Too many
Oh.
fade sprays. Oh,
Yeah, I think if you use more than 3, your ranking drops by 1.
well, I still think you did a good job, Alex. You hopped off the airplane and walked in here and just immediately ran right through Resident Evil 2 again.
yeah, should be mentioned. You literally
Story
jumped
of
off
my
the plane.
life. Story
Yeah.
of my life.
Yep.
Ooh, I earned the rocket launcher. I did not expect that. Yay. Makes
Check
life
the
a lot
item
easier
box.
for the next run through.
That's good. All right, well, I guess we're kind of coming to the end then, gentlemen.
Probably our latest stream of all time.
Yeah, it's up there for sure. And there's a new N64 digital firmware that just dropped as well, and also
Whoa.
I'll have to go check that out. But yeah, so I guess
There
I should
was
say,
one more super chat though.
Oh,
With a
sorry,
question
yes,
for
of course.
Alex. Mana Nogumov for the fourth time, I think.
Yeah,
Pardon my English,
thank
but
you.
ain't Jill sandwich an inappropriate joke, or is the Japanese translation just went off the rails, or is my English just too bad? Okay, Alex, the Jill sandwich.
The original line was literally like you could have been made into a sandwich.
Mhm.
サンドイッチが出来上がるところだった. Right? So it's like you were almost made into a sandwich. There was no Jill sandwich in the original Japanese line. I think that was something the localizer at the time took a little bit of liberty with. So
Wait,
that's
what did
actually
it-
a reference. That's
what-
actually a reference lost on a lot of Japanese people.
But would it have been? I mean, would you consider that localization though? Because I mean, the original game was always voiced in English, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it still localization if that's the original version? Like, it's more like that. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a slight difference somehow.
a little bit, yeah.
'Cause They didn't
Yeah,
record.
it's-
They didn't record those English voices for the Western audience per se. I mean,
They were
probably,
also the
yes, but
Japanese version, but the
that's-
subtitle
yeah,
says
exactly.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
certain thing. And I think when those got translated into English, I'm pretty sure the writer at the time probably took a liberty or two. But I think outside of that, most of the dialogue in Resident Evil 1 between the Japanese and the English versions is more or less the same.
Right.
You know
Might
what's
be a
also
few
funny
things.
about the voice actor for Barry in the original Resident Evil 1 is Norwegian.
All right.
I
That's
think he's
awesome.
Norwegian Canadian or something.
Something like this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
And his name
Have
is
you met
also
him?
Barry.
he's actually named Barry and he looks like Barry.
Yeah.
I love it.
I haven't met him myself, but he offered a lot of insight for the book, and I think it was very useful to kind of get some context as to how the voices were recorded back in the day. And in 1995, there was no standard for voice acting, right?
No.
Or localization quality or
Not really.
supervision or anything like that. Actually, today, Wesker's voice actor went on Twitter and decided to reenact some of the lines that he did for RE1
Oh yeah, I
25
saw
years
that.
later.
But Alex, I would say I disagree. There was no standard for voice acting back then. There definitely was examples of really well done voice acting in games, but it wasn't that
TurboGrafx.
common.
Maybe yeah, in Japan that standard hadn't quite
No. I mean, like, oh yeah, no, like
made it
for
over.
Snatcher, for instance, on Sega CD.
Ah,
Came over to the US. They did an amazing job translating it and sort of doing English voice acting for it. Or, so obviously some Western games. LucasArts, of course, was well known for its excellent voice acting, but
right.
those were obviously developed in the
Eastbook
US.
1 and 2.
Eastbook 1 and 2 sounds great. That's true. The US version of that. There's examples, but you're right. By and large, voice acting was still kind of in its infancy.
Yeah, I would say when I say there was no standard, there wasn't something that any company could easily reference in the video
That's
game
right.
space.
Yeah, that's true.
That can kind of guide the producer at the time into making sure that the voice acting was done correctly. I'm sure,
That's right.
games
That's
with
right.
great voice acting already existed, but
Are you aware
Capcom
of
wasn't
the?
really.
I was gonna say, are you aware of the biggest mystery around Resident Evil 1 though, which is the actress for Jill has never been found?
Apparently, she was found by somebody finally.
Really?
I
Okay.
don't know
Wow,
if anything
okay.
ever came of that, but yeah, one of the websites or like the fan groups found her, or at least know who she is, and I don't know, maybe they're trying to interview her. I don't know, but yeah, the people were all based in Japan at the time, like random non-Japanese people living there for one reason or another,
Right,
Yeah,
right.
modeling and whatnot.
modeling. And,
All right. Well, gentlemen, we could talk about Resident Evil all night, but it's starting to get late over here.
We
so,
did.
wait, we did. You're right, but it's not all night yet. So we're gonna hop off here, but
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for coming out to watch with us tonight. It was cool to have Chris here earlier, and thanks to Alex for sticking through all the way to the end and joining us for the stream, and of course my partner in crime, Audi, for joining me in the hosting duties.
It turned out perfectly, didn't it? We had two wonderful guests. We had wonderful audience, wonderful questions, and we
Absolutely.
had a wonderful night.
All right. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for us today. And yeah, we'll see everybody on the YouTube channel soon enough. Thanks for